The boy's words to all living things. For plants, for animals, for birds and mushrooms. Thank you for all the living things in this world. Druid Mountain. A flower field near the mountain's summit. In the middle of the flower field, with its muzzle raised, a moose slowly walks. He lowers his muzzle to the flower bush and encounters a dark gaze and a knife. The village at the foot of the Druid Mountain. In the middle of the square stands a large wooden stand, on which a defeated moose hangs. Passers-by are surprised, noting whether he finally did it. What a great nuisance from the flower fields. Now it is possible to calmly overcome the mountains. Those who were beaten to death will also find peace. A dark-haired young man smiles as he clutches a pouch of money. An old man thanks the young man for his work. Smiling brightly, E.T., the dark-haired guy, says that everything is fine. Continuing to smile, E.T. says that those 6 hours were worth it. He even thought about screaming when the moose pooped on him. It's good that it's all over. Suddenly, he hears a whisper, asking him not to approach. A man and a woman address 2 girls who are sitting on a leash. They ask them to be careful and write a letter. E.T. loudly calls one of the girls by name and runs to them, waving his hand with all his might. The young man asks where they are heading. The girls in response ask when he came down from the mountain. E.T. replies that it was this morning. The girl with pigtails says that they are going to the capital for an exam. E.T. ponders, trying to remember what they are about. The girl indignantly remarks that they are all taking it. The young man innocently notes that it has nothing to do with him. With a satisfied smile, E.T. throws the catch into their cart, offering the girls to enjoy the choice rabbit meat, causing them to jump back in horror. The short-haired girl awkwardly thanks him and, after a brief pause, addresses him. She cautiously asks if E.T. will continue to live in the mountains. Everyone in the village loves him. If the young man only hunts in the mountains, then why not live in the village? With a smile, E.T. replies that he lives in the mountains because he has things to do there. The girl awkwardly widens her eyes. Oh, really? She asks him to take care of himself. The young man asks her to do the same. He waves goodbye to her and leaves. The man who is watching them notes that E.T. is different from them. They live in different worlds. E.T. walks down the street, with a huge forest ahead of him. Now it's time to return to the mountain. He moves forward, a knife appearing on his belt. When E.T. was 6 years old, he was given a small knife and some food, and when it ran out, he realized that he was completely alone. The boy washed himself with river water and drank it. He fed on berries and tried to find something edible in the clearings, in the bushes and among the trees. One way or another, his constant wanderings over stone ledges and in leaf shelters came to an end. At some point, E.T., completely exhausted from hunger, lay in the clearing, clutching a small knife in his hands. Then, looking at the sunlit object, he suddenly realized this knife is not for hunting. It was given to him so that E.T. would thrust it into his own throat. Exhausted, he turns onto his back, holding a knife close to his throat. But suddenly something distracts him. E.T. turns his head and sees a huge, drooling fox next to him. E.T. does not take his indifferent gaze off the growling animal. Gathering all his strength, E.T. suddenly grips the knife and attacks the fox. He was surprised at how much he was still attached to his life. After a long time, a spark appeared in E.T.'s eyes. Then he learned about the value of living beings, how to catch fish, how to recognize wild vegetables, and also where wild mushrooms grow. And also E.T. learned what it means to kill for the sake of killing, like hunting animals. He is grateful that everyone in the village accepted him as a wanderer. But he still has things that E.T. wants to do. The instinct of struggle, developed by life in the mountains, he did not know if it was intuition. But E.T. found him at the top of the mountain behind the flower garden. It was a huge creature, unlike anything he had ever seen. But the young man immediately understood that it was strong, and this thing could easily kill a person. It lay quietly on a large tree, like on a pillow. Teacher E.T. reaches for his knife on his belt without taking his eyes off the creature. But then he turns and runs away from there. He doesn't know, but perhaps it didn't kill people. And it didn't even harm animals. Murder for the sake of murder. If one side does not direct murderous intent, then the other should not do so either. Killing an animal for food and simply killing are different things. This line should never be crossed. But what if that creature gets to people and then sinks its fangs into them? What if it will be killing for the sake of killing? Yeti looks towards the mountain. It's time to hunt. How will he catch it? For now, the young man will settle for traps, create obstacles, and finish them all quickly. He is sure that this moment will come. The creature rises from the tree and stands up. This creature opens its mouth filled with sharp teeth. Insects, finally they are here. Several carriages are moving along the road. People are talking to each other. In one of the carriages sit the girls whom E.T. recently encountered. The girl with pigtails asks why they stopped, as she is actually hungry. Another girl agrees it's good that there was dried meat. A man reports that other carriages have blocked their way. The girl is indignant. They will be late. The man awkwardly explains that people are discussing an emergency magical alert. The girls exclaim in fright. They eagerly look out the window. They excitedly search for the witch. The witch turns out to be a girl with a sword at her waist and a tall black hat with a train. This is the abyss witch Desukarasu. She directs her gaze at what is near the top of the druid's mountain. She found it. The voice from the mirror asks her if she is sure it is magic. Desukarasu confidently replies that yes, it is. Then she says she's leaving and asks to take care of the people. The voice from the mirror asks her to wait for reinforcements, but the girl replies that she doesn't need it. The fair-haired girl is outraged. This is Desukarasu. In a dark, mirror-lined office, a fair-haired girl sits behind a richly decorated desk. She has long hair and a large, inlaid hat on her head. She lowers a smoking pipe and sighs. There's nothing to be done. Desukarasu is her daughter. She is the golden witch Managarudo. The witch announces an urgent evacuation of the surrounding residents and the use of protective magic. Voices from the mirrors accept the order. Clenching a smoking pipe in his hand, Managarudo asks several questions. Which witch can move quickly? Are there any ready witches? She orders that they all head to the Druid's Mountain. They must settle this here, otherwise nothing will work out. Desukarasu must study royal magic no matter what. This magic cannot remain uncontrolled. In this world, magic is the movement of being. Magic has long been in contact with humanity. Then the talking water appeared. Then this drop turned to a fair-haired girl, enticing her to drink all this water. And then the girl would learn the magic of its water droplets. This is a test. When the girl passes it, she will be able to use a spell that allows her to create water droplets. It has continued like this since then. The magic of fire offered to embrace it for a whole hour as a test. The magic of ice asked to sleep with it. The magic of wind proposed to walk 1,000 kilometers with it. Overcoming the trials created by magic, people mastered magic. In their time, people respect those who were able to overcome the trials and master magic. Such people are called witches. At this time, the witches anxiously ask if the people have been evacuated. They are reported that the task is 80% complete. Another witch asks about the barrier, regardless of how many layers there will be. 4 or 5, the main thing is to make the barter very strong. They shout for no one to dare approach the mountain. There will be a battlefield of monsters. On this mountain, that mysterious creature and Desukarasu have just met. With an arrogant smile, the creature notes that the witch has found him after all. Smirking, he remarks that it seems she likes him, and the girl is stalking him. Holding a sword in front of her, Desukarasu calls him very strange and asks him to hurry up and teach her, and she addresses him as Shy Magic. The creature laughs loudly. Is he shy? He greets the contender with a 6, but will this contender be able to handle this royal magic? Since the creatures are magical, each of them has their own thoughts, and the worst among them is royal magic. She refuses to teach witches. She destroyed mountains, dried up rivers and lakes, which caused many people to die. This magic doesn't care about human lives. Magic notes that it has lived so long that it already feels more like a living being, so if the witch doesn't leave it alone, it will kill her. To pass the trial of this magic, Desukarasu needs to stop this heart. Everything is perfectly clear. He turns to the witch, flying towards him with a sword in her hands. Let her try, if she can, to pierce this heart. A loud noise and explosion are heard on the mountain. The witches turn around anxiously, shouting for Desukarasu to defeat this creature. The witch kneels down on one knee. The creature addresses her. It seems she only vaguely knows about it. He explains something. He is overwhelmed with discomfort and despair. Why did he not obey the 1,000 witch spells? He claims it's because a woman cannot even touch his heart, so Desukaras couldn't win. But today's experience was the most terrifying in this creature's life. Everything was fine from beginning to end. The witch quietly curses. The creature loudly shouts that no matter how powerful modern witches may be, they cannot go against the rules of magic. After all, they, the witches, are just women. To master the heart of this magic, they will need an eternity. Behind him appears E.T. with a sword at the ready. He stops in front of the creature holding the girl. An awkward silence hangs in the air. Both Desukaras and the creature look incredulously at the young man. E.T. clarifies where this creature came from. The creature quietly swears, and E.T. notes that he is a boy. A second passes. The young man swiftly swings his sword, and the creature ends up on the ground. The creature's hand turns out to be bound, and it opens its eyes in surprise. E.T. explains that it's a trap. The more you pull, the tighter it gets. The creature won't be able to remove it. The creature begins to panic and asks him to put down that small knife. It screams, asking why E.T. is looking at it that way. The creature asks him not to come closer and to lower the knife. E.T. notes that the creature wanted to kill him. Murder for the sake of murder. The young man jumps up, brandishing a knife, and pierces the creature's heart. After some time, E.T. is in a different outfit, and a high-crowned hat adorns his head. He looks at his attire with bewilderment. He yells, "What kind of clothes are these? They stand out so much." Suddenly, a sword appears next to his face. It's Desukarasu. She calls him a brat and threatens him if he so much as twitches. E.T. swings towards her, breaking her magical wall. Desperately, she asks why he did it. E.T. honestly admits that he sensed her murderous intent. Sobbing, Desukarasu calls him an automatic headhunting machine. In any case, E.T. is in a worse condition now, so she threatens him not to move or chatter, and especially not to cast spells. The young man asks again in surprise. Spells like pierce? Light spreads around the young man. An explosion is heard. Desukarasu desperately grips his sword, while Managarudo incredulously examines everything in his mirrors. By the way, only women can possess magical abilities. Consequently, all people who can handle and study magic are women. Therefore, a witch association was created. In this world, men cannot use magic. However, there are magics with special trials that only men can complete. Moreover, overcoming such trials occurs with a probability of 0.001%, which is practically impossible, so it is considered a miracle. Until it happens, a wild child has invaded the world of witches and magic. Magic is a living being. Creatures that give people challenges. Women who conquer and master magic are called witches. Among them, the Desukarasu is the most powerful and beautiful witch of modern times. She has fully demonstrated her talent and cornered hatred, and the worst royal magic almost to the brink of death. However, no woman could defeat this magic, and in a moment of desperate situation, a lousy gaki suddenly appears and defeats the royal magic. And the lousy gaki mastered the royal magic. With tears in his eyes, Desukarasu explains why this happened. She shows a drawing to the young man sitting in the cage. Desukaras asks if he understands. E.T., folding his arms across his chest, replies that there are things he would like to complain about, but he understands. Still, what is this cage? It turns out that the cage is floating in the air. It is located on a large magical circle. Desukaras points downward and clarifies, could he really have forgotten? Ichi involuntarily swallows. Underneath them lies a long, deep trench. The consequences of the young man's use of magic. Desukarasu asks him to consider that the royal magic he has learned is quite dangerous. Its scientific name is transcendental magic, widely known as the King Uroro. A legendary magic that witches have not been able to master even in 1,000 years. Transcendental magic specializes in magical effects, allowing the maximum enhancement of any magic's action. No preparation is required if he simply knows how to cast spells. Hence the result, a newly appeared moat. They have big problems because a snotty monkey, who didn't even know the word magic, mastered its dangerous form, which can disrupt the balance in the magical world. E.T. awkwardly frowns. Witches have their own world. Desukarasu explains that there is one advantage or disadvantage. After one shot, the young man will be unconscious for 3 days. Iti asks again in surprise, and then exclaims, "He slept for 3 days?" The witch clarifies that no matter what she did, he did not regain consciousness. The young man understands why his cheeks hurt so much now. Desukarasu complains that even loud magic did not work, and restoration magic only made the grass around greener. The young man opens his eyes in admiration, wishing he could have seen it. The girl continues that, in any case, either he joins her as a servant or becomes an enemy of the world. Iti looks at her in confusion. An enemy of the world? Become a servant? The girl explains that his very existence is extremely unusual, and he is likely the first male witch in the world. Scientists and witches from all over the world will surely want to study him. The witch continues to scare him. The young man will definitely undergo a full course of research torture. Iti imagines all this and falls to the floor. What should he do? Desukarasu gets up from the chair. She has things to do, but she would also like to keep Uroro close at hand, so, as she said, Ichi is under her protection. Suddenly, someone smirks. On the young man's face appears the shadow of Uroro, who notes that he is voting for victory. Desukarasu turns his attention to him in surprise. Sitting on Iti's shoulder, Uroro explains that the young man should not be deceived, and clarifies that the witch is simply trying to take him away. He will lend Iti's strength to defeat the enemies and escape. The young man swings and shakes the magic off his shoulder. It falls outside the cage, but eventually ends up on Iti's shoulder anyway. The young man complains that he scared him, and Desukarasu is outraged that those are her words. Iti again notices Uroro nearby. He tries to swing again, but the magic asks not to cut him. Iti explains that if something strange starts growing on him, the knife will come into play. Moreover, he reacted to the murderous intent. Desukarasu asks the young man not to hunt Uroro. The young man, however, is outraged by this insane composure. The witch approaches the cage and declares that she knows what Uroro's plan is. He wants the boy to engage in a fight with the Witch Association and perish. Iti opens his eyes in surprise. If the witch dies, the magic can be released. The young man irritably grips the knife and turns towards Uroro. The magic justifies itself, saying that it is not true, he would never allow this brat to possess him. But those are the rules. Uroro swears he does not want to cooperate with the damn witches and hunt his own people. After all, witches are savages who hunt them because of magic. Desukarasu is outraged. She indignantly addresses Uroro, saying that they, with their magic, are just a bunch of weaklings doing who knows what. Magic responds with indignation, claiming they are the true indigenous people, and their history predates the emergence of the lower races. Desukarasu opposes him, saying Uroro thinks too old-fashioned, and the magic of that time does not correspond to the present. In fact, there is magic that is friendly to people. However, Uroro does not even want to hear about it. He does not know such people. They are all traitors. Iti clarifies, are there really many magical creatures like him in this world? The young man's eyes shine with interest, as Desukarasu gives him a surprised look. Suddenly, the witch has an idea. She agrees, indeed, magic is such a diverse and formidable bounty. Iti enthusiastically agrees with her words. The witch explains that out of the 3,185 currently known types of magic, only 402 have been studied by witches. Many others can still be found in the world. After all, no one has yet reached the craters of volcanoes or the depths of the sea, whether in the fields above the shining sky or inside someone's office. And there is definitely magic there to hunt and study, and there are witches. After some time, Desukarasu admits that she has seen Ichi's house and his way of life. He is a hunter. The young man, sitting cross-legged in the cage, does not take his eyes off her. The witch continues, saying that usually men do not even touch magic, but he is a special case, having acquired magical power. He has the opportunity to become a magic hunter. Uroro, sitting on Ichi's hand, glances at him. He curses mentally. That damn witch is trying to make the boy do ridiculous things with ridiculous people. It's frightening to think what will happen if someone like him ends up in the magical world. With shining eyes and flushed cheeks, Iti declares that he agrees. Uroro seems to lose his soul at his words. Iti continues, saying that he never fully understood what magic is, but he is ready to hunt. Desukarasu nods. Magic is outraged, claiming this is the worst-case scenario, and an atmosphere of despair reigns around him. The witch, on the contrary, supports the young man. E.T. snaps his fingers, and gradually the bars of the cage in front of him evaporate. Finally, he is free. Desikurasu taps on the glass and explains that they need to descend the mountain quickly. E.T. lowers his gaze to the deep trench left by his magic and turns away, crossing his arms. He inquires about the restoration magic the witch mentioned earlier, asking what kind of spell it is. The call on the mirror is declined. The girl turns to him and recites the spell, then asks why he needs it. The young man nods with a smile and once again dons the witcher's attire, holding a small knife in his hand, surrounded by a magical aura. Desikurasu cries out in despair. She asks what he is up to. With utmost honesty, Iteri admits that he wants to use magic. The witch yells at him to stop. Has he forgotten what she talked about? Remembering, E.T. replies that he will say goodbye to her for 3 days. Desikurasu is in despair, and the young man with a smile notes that before leaving, he needs to return everything to how it was. E.T. jumps off the magic circle. The witcher is falling down. He apologizes and activates the spell Perusian. Everything around begins to bloom, actively grow, and turn green. Animals and insects reappear. The witches look around in surprise at what is happening. Everything is good again, alive and growing, as it was before the battle with Uroro. E.T. lies under a tree, snoring loudly. Desikurasu swears loudly, calling him a lousy gaki. From the mirror comes the indignant voice of Manegarudo. She yells that she finally got through to Desikurasu, asking what the girl was doing all this time and what happened to the forest. Desikurasu awkwardly draws out the vowels, and then, hanging from one of the tree branches, replies that she thinks they should throw the boy out and get a good sleep. Druid Mountain. A flying bird hears some kind of crackling. An explosion is heard again. A huge white fox lies on a large rock. He contentedly surveys the results of his hunt and inhales noisily. He knew it. The scent of animals is wonderful. The fox strides across the clearing, holding something shiny in its teeth. About 2 weeks after the appearance of thunder magic in this world, all the animals in the area were burned to ashes. Now the witches have no way to master the magic that belongs to this fox. It wags its tail contentedly. There is no one else around. As it descends from the rock, the fox feels a tingling in its paw. A few kilometers from here, there should be a village. With a mad grin, he asks himself, maybe it's worth going and roasting all the people there. His magic is ignition by lightning. Lightning passes through the body with an electric discharge. It makes the blood boil and kills from the inside. This is eerie and terrifying magic. The fox, wagging its tail rather contentedly, walks along the path. It thinks it would burn all the humans that inhabit this place. So many that all the witches would turn pale. And then it would become famous as anti-human magic, and reach the pinnacle of thunder magic. It is here that all the witches would worship it. It is here that his legend begins. The fox continues to move forward, not noticing the young man hiding next to the tree. Edie is preparing the rope at this time. The fox senses something, however. Turning towards the tree, he notices nothing. The fox thinks he imagined it. Then he notices that his amulet is dirty. To master the magic of this fox, a person must take this amulet without receiving a single electric shock. This is a very cruel test. The fox directly sees the faces of witches full of agony. Behind the magic, upside down from a tree, hangs E.T. The fox turns around once more. It seems he is too agitated. He needs to calm down. Suddenly he hears some melody. It comes from a dark-haired girl with pigtails. She is sitting in a clearing with her back to the fox, picking flowers. The fox smirks. Lucky, he didn't think he would get to practice on a human before he managed to burn down an entire village. The fox swiftly heads towards the girl. Memorable human grill number 1. It's not worth burning it right away. It's better for her to show this thunderous fox how scared she is and trembling with terror. The fox jumps towards the girl, who at that moment turns to the noise. Licking its lips, the fox jumps. However, instead of prey, it falls into a trap. The rope wraps around its body, and Edie, jumping out, tightens it. And then the witcher throws a cloth over the face of the magic. the fox cannot understand what is happening to him. E.T. opens her eyes wide with admiration. He holds a fox wrapped in cloth in his hands. This magic is not that great. As mentioned, E.T. hunted without Uroro's help. Desukarasu notes that it's magical sacrilege, but it worked. E.T. prepares to deal with the fox, but Uroro stops him. The young man turns to the magic with bewilderment, and it awkwardly explains that it feels too sorry for him, and asks how they managed to catch this magic. First of all, Uroro clarifies what kind of rope is wrapped around the fox's neck. E.T. immediately explains enthusiastically that the loop tightens itself when you pull in the right direction. It's very simple. Foxes jump well to the northeast. If you leave bait and lure it out, there is a high probability that the fox will get caught. With a sweet smile, Desukarasu clarifies that now they understand why this fragile and beautiful lady, Desukarasu, is so attractive as bait. The young man, frowning, inquires about the lady, while Uroro, narrowing his eyes suspiciously, asks about the fragility. Ignoring her, Ichi returns to his prey, having draped a fabric specially made by the young man over the magic, which is soaked in wood vinegar. Foxes do not like the smell. Their fox, moreover, has a very sensitive nose, and E.T. decided that this would knock it out. Slightly tensely, Uroro agrees that this is logical. However, in Uroro's imagination, everything should have looked like this. Magic and the witch, upon encountering each other, pronounce their names. It's a tradition. Now E.T. understands what the fox was mumbling about while walking along the path. The witch notes that all efforts are in vain. E.T. notes that the basis of hunting is surprise. For this, there is no need to introduce oneself to the prey. The young man recalls that the fox wanted to roast people. Uroro flinches at his words. The fox burned so many animals not out of hunger. It was not a hunt, but a simple massacre. E.T. looks at the fox with wide-open eyes, thinking that he has the right to do whatever he wants with him. Uroro grinds his teeth in displeasure. The witch mentally notes that this guy has a fundamentally different view on magic. The boy perceives magic as something different, unlike the witches who extol it. Usually, one would have to fear the lightning of the thunder fox. However, by observing the fox all day, E.T. managed to find a weak spot. This is a form of magical hunting, where magic is perceived as a living creature. Raising the knife, the young man admits he completely forgot whether he should stab the neck or the heart. Desukarasu responds resignedly that it doesn't matter. Mentally, she adds that the witches from the association would faint if they heard him. She orders that before this big guy wakes up, Ichi should remove the amulet from his neck. The young man asks if they might at least take the fur. However, Desukarasu is adamant. The witcher removes the amulet. Suddenly, there is an explosion. A stone with unknown writings appears in front of the young man's face. With interest, he touches this stone, asking what it is. The witch explains that it is a magic stone, a sign that he has mastered magic, and suggests that E.T. take it with him. The witcher asks why Uroro did not turn into stone. The girl replies that he is an exception. Proudly, Uroro declares that he himself is the pearl of existence. E.T. claims that he is too dirty for decoration, and he also has a sharp tongue. Desukarasu adds that he is ugly. However, Uroro doesn't care. They can say whatever they want. E.T. notices that something is written on the stone. Rolling his eyes, Desukarasu explains that it is a spell. Reading it activates the power of the Thunder Fox, so the young man should not even dare to pronounce it. However, E.T. is itching to say something, while Desukarasu declares that they have enough souvenirs. She taps on the mirror, from which a loud scream is heard. Manegorudo is outraged, asking where Desukarasu has been all this time. The girl covers her ears, while the blonde complains that she had to clean up after them, and she also demands a report from the witch. Manegorudo adds that witches can no longer wait. She asks about IT and requests to bring him to the capital's Witch Association Natari Mantanel. Desukarasu changes clothes, causing E.T. to stare at her with suspicion. The capital of Natari has a population of about 3 million people, a magical city. Thriving along the coast, a well-known tourist spot is Main Street. The capital association is Manchinaru. E.T. examines everything along the way with interest, glancing back at each shop with goods. He exclaims somewhat tensely that there are a lot of people here. They are just walking down Main Street. Desukaras explains that this is the busiest town in the county, and there are many shops, but he is not allowed to touch anything. The young man notes that all the women here possess magic. The witch notes that he hasn't seen anything like this in the countryside. If he doesn't learn the basics of magic, he won't be able to use it. Magic lessons from Desukarasu. There is an association of witches called Manshinaru, where there is a classification. The first are witches, specialists in hunting for magic in different parts of the country. The second are witch candidates, high school students, workers from various departments, magic research, witch assistants, production of magical equipment, and much more. The third are witch candidates, elementary school students. Only women who have passed the exam and selection can study magic at the educational institution of the Manshinaru Witch Academy. And the very last are ordinary people. Ordinary men cannot use magic due to the lack of magical abilities. Ordinary women possess witchcraft abilities, but can hardly use magic. However, magical tools are available to them. Many women working in Natari are from the Association of Witches. They also produce and process goods using magic. Witch dolls, witch dictionaries. In general, witches are very popular. It's a great tourist attraction, and there are a lot of witch-related goods here. The young man picks up one of the books in the shop. It turns out to be a biography of Desukarasu, and Ichi frowns. The witch asks what is wrong. The young man notes that it's all lies, just terrible, and it's amazing that no one has realized it. Placing his hands on his face, Desukarasu notes that if he made it, he could surpass its true magnificence. However, Ichi is no longer looking at her. Paying attention to the boots, the witch looks at him irritably. The saleswoman addresses the young man, saying he is a boy interested in magical tools, which is amazing. Magical tools are items that can be used by infusing them with magic. The boots that the young man noticed are actually a jump enhancer. If magic is infused into them, leg strength will increase. Ichi already imagines how he will be able to jump over walls in them, but the seller mentions that due to female anatomy, one can jump no more than 2 meters. Ichi immediately asks excitedly if he can try them on. However, the seller forbids it, as even if he puts them on, he will get nothing but fashionable boots. The magical tools are intended only for women. However, one of the girls in the shops mentions that she heard a male witch has recently appeared. One of the grandmothers calls it nonsense. Male witches do not exist. Ichi wants to say something, but Desukaras closes his mouth. Through clenched teeth, she hisses that the fact he possesses magic is a secret. He must not use it. If anyone finds out, she will be furious. The young man quickly nods. He got it. The witch asks him not to stick out. Suddenly, a letter flies between them, and they simultaneously turn to the fallen letter. A letter from the sky? The vendor points upward. Didn't that child drop it? Some kind of transport is flying in the sky. Ichi notes with admiration that it is flying. Desukarasu calmly explains that it is the magic of flight. The vendor folds his hands together, and the candidates for witches deliver mail from the port to the association. The witch notes with surprise that she has such a large luggage, completely packed. The salesgirl nods. You might not even notice if something falls out. A letter could be important. An idea comes to Ichi's mind. Desukarasu says that she will register the letter with the association later. At this moment, an explosion is heard behind her. No one understands where such a wind came from and what just happened. Desukarasu turns around. The seller notices that the boots are missing. Desukaras exclaims in despair, "Could it really be Ichi?" The young man notes the jump with admiration, his eyes shining with joy. However, then he wonders how to land. He jumps from one roof, flipping over. Jump! Jump! Ichi flashes in one of the windows, greeting the people inside. A boy shouts to his mother that a strange boy is flying in the sky. However, no one understands what the boy is talking about. Ichi continues to hop across the roofs in awe. At this time, the blonde girl exhales desperately. This is a candidate for witches at the Magical Academy, Manshinaru Kumugi. Difficult. The master has bought some strange equipment again. No matter how you look at it, it clearly weighs too much. Today she was woken up at 5 in the morning by strange bird sounds. Cracks appeared on her favorite mug in the shape of the word death. Even the forecast from the prophecy speaks of danger. What a day it has turned out to be. Why does she have to collect and deliver all this? And the motorcycle is so slow and old. Kumugi was so immersed in her suffering that she didn't hear someone calling her. She is called again. The girl continues to indulge in melancholy. The motorcycle has broken down several times and needs repair. No, she wants a new one to be bought for her at the department's expense. She is called louder. Adjusting her beret, Kumugi turns around and asks how she can help. Hanging upside down in elegant boots, Iti hands the girl a letter she dropped. For a while, Kumugi stares at the young man in shock, but then she starts screaming in surprise. Suddenly, Desukurasu appears behind her, apologizing and causing Kumugi's soul to leave her body. The witch grabs the young man and the girl under her arm. Through clenched teeth, Desukurasu calls the young man a brat. She calls him a wild, stupid child who always pulls some stunt. She yells at him not to use magic and not to stand out. Iti apologizes, but the witch continues to protest that he won't say sorry at the police station. Sadly looking at the young man, Desukurasu mutters that it was actually quite painful. She doesn't want to write reports longer than 5 words and apologizes. Suddenly, Uroro appears, repeating her words about the police and forgiveness. Desukurasu immediately shouts for the damn caterpillar to shut up. They bicker for a while. The young man looks down and addresses the witch. With a bright smile, he declares that magic is wonderful. Raising her hand, Iti can almost reach the birds in the sky. If you walk along the river in these shoes, the fish faint. So many cool possibilities! Desukurasu lowers her gaze. She quietly mutters to Uroro that she thinks she should still throw that scoundrel into the sea. To which the magic agrees with her. Continuing to smile, Iti asks if the smoke is supposed to be coming out of the motorcycle. The witch turns around and yells to stop. Bang! Managerudo discontentedly notes that she did ask to bring the boy, but not to fly through the gates with him. With a smile, Desukurasu notes that she is home. Managerudo adds that she will have to write a report in any case. The mirror, in front of which the witch and the young man stand, reads a report. It lists the names, Desukurasu, whom everyone loves, and one more person. The young man frowns. Could she have registered herself like that? The mirror responds that the name and voice are identified. A staircase appears from the mirror. Allow mirror transition. Through the mirror, they enter a magical hall. Iti notes in astonishment that there is a huge ceiling here. He begins to loom, carefully examining everything around. Is this a stone floor? And what kind of pattern is that? Are the columns wooden? He has never seen anything like it before. And why is everything around shining? He doesn't understand. Desukurasu hopelessly calls him a country bumpkin. What's wrong with him? Iti takes out a knife and asks what will happen if he scratches the floor. Desukurasu immediately warns him not to dare do that. Placing her fingers on the bridge of her nose, she asks him to be quiet and not to stand out. The young man sighs, and Desukurasu further adds that he should stay out of trouble. Iti nods. Uroro on his shoulder watches the witch suspiciously. Desukurasu notices that for some reason no one is meeting her. But at this moment, the floor next to the young man begins to bubble. From there, a leg with eyes emerges. And then, the girl appears entirely. She is standing on her hands. She conducts an analysis. The young man's height is 165 centimeters. Weight is 60 kilograms. The body fat percentage is 11%. Approaching the young man closer, the girl notes his surprisingly healthy and flexible musculature. He is a boy, but possesses magical abilities. It's so astonishing. She can hardly believe her eyes. She can't wait to examine him. What is he? Suddenly, another girl appears, and she apologizes. She firmly holds the girl who was examining the young man and asks her to calm down. However, the researcher does not calm down. She wants a lock of Iti's hair. The girl with the bandage squeezes a small ball, and she throws it to the researcher, who immediately gets distracted from Iti to catch the ball. This girl shouts to other people in the same bandages to line up. She greets Desukurasu. Today, they, the Faculty of Sorcery and Magical Studies of the Witch Institute, will be their guides. Iti remembers that it was this girl who lost the letter. Kumugi awkwardly thanks the young man for covering for her. She hands him the access permission. By decree of Miss Monegarudo, it is forbidden to approach Iti without permission. Now Desukarasu understands why there is no one here. Kumugi introduces that girl researcher. This is the head of their department, the research witch Miss Shirabedona. Master Shirabe is an extraordinary person. She gets carried away when it comes to research. She apologizes for her again. Iti asks if all witches are like that and receives a negative answer. Kumugi apologizes once more for the unsightly appearance, and it's nice to meet them again. They escort them. The room for the registration of studied magic. Shirabe asks the young man to stop in the center. He raises his head and sees a mirror on the ceiling. Desukarasu asks what's wrong, but he shakes his head. The head of the research department asks Ichi to show what he can do. The magic he learned is the Thunder Fox. She asks him to use it and demonstrate what he can do. The young man looks in her direction in surprise. Desukarasu hints to him about the magic stone spell. The young man remembers it and takes out the stone. The witch continues, saying that only Iti is capable of reading it. The true name of the Thunder Fox is carved on the stone. He must prepare his knife, then strike the target, embodying his intention. He needs to imagine the true name of the Thunder Fox. Hit the target? Iti presents the target and extends the knife forward. Shirabe's eyes shine with admiration. Behind the young man, the image of a Thunder Fox forms. He swings. He pronounces Thunder Fox and strikes directly at the mirror on the ceiling. A loud bang echoes, causing everyone to open their eyes in surprise. Kumugi notes that he really is a magician. Iti rubs his hand. As if he swung a scythe, it's difficult to control. Suddenly, Shirabe appears next to him, stating that she understands everything. She explains that he is a sensory type. By female standards, his amount of magical power is average, and his magic has no form, but he activated his powers without hesitation with the intention of catching the enemy. Magic is new to him, but he has a lot of experience in hunting. This is interesting. It seems that if Yororo is not used, Ichi does not shut down for 3 days. He also doesn't get knocked out by the magic of the Thunder Fox. However, why did the young man aim at the ceiling and attack the mirror? Ichi looks up and states that it's a habit. If he is seized by a strong intention, especially murderous, the body moves automatically. Continuing to look up, he asks if there is someone on the ceiling. With a smile, Shirabe asks how he found out about it. Right now, the witches of the association are watching him through a mirror. They want to study the boy. The boy can use magic without hesitation. Shirabe explains that the votes are split, to consider him a weapon or an enemy. Therefore, she thinks it would be better for them to come up with something quickly. A dark shadow materializes behind Iti. Everyone steps back in fear. It addresses Iti. He asks if the young man knows what witches are capable of. They should not be trusted, especially those who watch with the intention to destroy. It would be better for the young man to stay with him. Uroro suggests to Ichi to organize a witch hunt. The young man turns around. The history of royal magic. Uroro saw how witches hunted for magic. Initially, only magic existed in this world. Those were peaceful days. Together they rejoiced and laughed. But as soon as people appeared, they began to hunt magic for personal gain. It is so humiliating that hundreds of his comrades were hunted and turned into tools. Why is only magic exploited, while arrogant people dominate? Uroro addresses the young man. He possesses an incredible talent, making it not so difficult to get rid of witches. Iti attacked the opponent without hesitation when he directed murderous intent at him. That is, theoretically, the young man can attack a person. So what is wrong with being on the side of magic? Uroro's words make everyone tense. Uroro proposes to Iti to join forces. Together, they can go on a hunt to release the magic trapped by witches. The young man looks at the hand extended by magic and reaches out in response. Iti squeezes his hand and throws magic over his shoulder. The witches watch the proceedings in astonishment. Shirabe shouts, asking if everyone saw that. Iti declares that it's a secret technique to take down anyone, even a bear. Uroro notes that it was an excellent lie. Iti calmly explains that if Uroro hated hunting his compatriots, he would have gone berserk when he caught the Thunder Fox. Eyes burning with a thirst for revenge are much fiercer and sharper. Uroro's eyes are empty. as if he is not interested in anyone but himself. And, as is already known, Iti is sensitive to the thirst for blood. Iti felt his murderous intent with all his heart. He can't even imagine how many times he wanted to attack him. The witches open their eyes wide in shock and flinch. Uroro frowns discontentedly. Uroro grins rather slyly. Why don't human beautiful fairy tales work? The young man is more heartless than he thought, and the world would be better off if he listened to Uroro and fell along with the witches. Magic calls the boy a damn brat. Iti laughs. The true nature of magic has finally come out. He wonders if he will be able to hunt other vile creatures like him in the future. Suddenly, he became curious. Iti attacks Uroro. The Yeti and the magic start rolling on the floor in a fight. They are cursing each other. The witches note that they are fighting. Komugi watches with interest. It seems to her that they are well suited for each other. Desukurasu notes that an idiot is calling an idiot an idiot. Shirabe smiles and notes that the guy is good. She approaches the fighting youth in magic and says that she can assure there will be no problems with him. Raising her hand and scattering the papers, she addresses the young man. He is now officially recognized as a witch by the Manchinaru Association. The head of the research department lifts the paper and, with a smile, notes that the viewer's approval has been received. The young man frowns in surprise, wondering why it was so easy. The girl adds that it's because she said the young man would become a problem for her. As Ichi thinks, why was she allowed to conduct this test? With a smile, Shirabe notes that she was allowed to conduct this test because her analyses never contain errors. She does not present words as reality, but speaks only the truth, for she is the witch of analyses Shirabadona. Iti notes that she is an important person, it turns out. Desukurasu adds, with a sigh, that in some sense, that is indeed the case. The department head adds that insurance is now needed. Someone must watch over the young man. Who do they have nearby at hand? Desukurasu frowns desperately. Everyone turns in unison towards the witch with a headdress and a bandage on her face. She opens her eyes wide in surprise, pointing at herself. The head of the research department states that everything is decided. The uniform for the young man is provided by the association. And in his case, the wand is his knife. It needs maintenance. Kurugi tries to stop them to talk. However, everyone ignores her. Manzanero Academy. Clothing department. A fair-haired girl with her hair pinned up and wearing a beautiful lace blouse, holding a box in her hand, thanks them for coming. For the first time since the association was founded, a men's uniform has been created, so the girl is very excited. She explains that the clothing adjusts its size automatically, and if he needs anything for the suit, he should contact them. With a gentle smile looking at the boy, she adds that if possible, she would like to conduct some measurements, so it would be great if the young man stops by again. E.T. nods. Smiling and waving goodbye to the group of people, the saleswoman joyfully exclaims. They leave. Academy of Manchinaru. Department of Tools. A girl with dark curly hair and glasses extends her hand for the young man to give her the magic stone. She examines the magic stone and notes that everything is clear to her. Even for men, it seems, there are no special magic stones. With a manic smile, she writes something in her notebook. The wand, wow, is a knife, and quite a battered one at that. She would like to make a new blade for it and work on the handle, but she is not sure how durable it will be. But in any case, the pattern needs to be replaced. The stone is yellow-purple, for example, to white or red, that will do too. She smirks. Iti watches her worriedly, fearing for his knife. With a satisfied smile, the head of the research department declares that Iti is now fully ready. Ite is fully ready, which means it's time for the next mission. Their target will be the ice shark. A report recently came in about numerous destructions in a nearby village. Their goal is to study the ice shark as soon as possible and save the residents. Shirabadona leaves this to them, Desukurasu and Iti. Desukurasu, Komugi, and Ichi form a group of specialists in the magical division. They become members of the Desukurasu squad. Looking confidently, Ichi notes, forward, to the hunt for the ice shark, as everything was according to Desukaras. The perfect witch Desukaras, with her intelligence and hard work, successfully tracked down the Thunder Fox along with the brat Ichi. Even the Witch Association is full of events. For example, there was a recent quarrel between the oddballs Ichi and Uroro, but it doesn't concern her. It's time for her to have tea. Ichi was certified as a safe boy witch, and then a specialized magical squad of Desukras was immediately created, and their first mission was the hunt for the ice shark. The fair-haired girl frowns irritably. Her name is Kumugi. She is a research associate in the Department of Witch and Magic Studies of the Association. Just an associate. So why is she now with Iti, who is sharpening a knife, and Desukarasu, who is lying on the featherbed? Uroro addresses the girl. With a sweet smile, Magic offers the girl friendship, but Kumugi exclaims with tears in her eyes. She doesn't understand what all this means to her. The corner of the witch student Kumugi's belongings. First, a notebook for creating reports. Write as much as you want. A cute Kumugi pen. A magical pouch with a pocket fold. It's a great item that can store even large objects if you add a pinch of magic. A backpack, her everyday companion. A witch's beret with a visor. A jacket, durable and sturdy. Thus, Kumugi is always ready for anything. At the moment, they are in a village at the foot of the mountain. They are about to embark on a journey in a magical carriage to reach their destination, Southernwood. Sitting in this carriage, Desukarasu asks how much longer the journey will take. Kumugi replies that it will be about half an hour. Desukarasu sighs discontentedly. Mirrors are much more convenient, but in this crappy village, there are none. Kumugi replies that the nearest mirror is 30 kilometers from their destination. Moreover, they can only pass through registered mirrors. Unregistered ones are prohibited. The witch mentions that they could have reached much faster if someone possessed the magic of flight. Kumugi immediately apologizes, and Desukarasu notes that it's not about her. Desukarasu points a finger at Ichi, as if clarifying that she meant him when she talked about the magic of flight. Kumugi turns away in fright. Conversations with Master Desukarasu are nerve-wracking, especially considering that she has weak inclinations towards offensive abilities. Kumugi specializes in simple and meticulous magical work. How wonderful it would be to sit in the office and conduct research instead of fighting. What if they encounter anti-human magic, the most dangerous one? How scared Kumugi is. She shouldn't be in a bloody combat unit. She bites her lip. But there is something even more terrifying. Suddenly, Iti appears next to the blonde girl. He asks what kind of bag she has. The most frightening thing for Kumugi is the boy who has mastered Uroro magic. Taken by surprise, the girl slips and falls. It is likely that Iti is the first male witch in the magical world. A rarest creature. The fact that the guy can use magic is already alarming. But above all, his behavior is frightening. Iti fights excellently with legendary magic he just took and threw it then in the hall. How can one come up with such a thing? Mentally, the girl notes that she does not want to talk to him, but nevertheless she replies that her bag is a magical tool for storing all sorts of things. The young man exclaims in surprise, could everything really fit in there? Smiling, the girl replies that yes, books, cups, and much more. The quantity and size depend on the volume of magical power, but it is very useful in expeditions. Admiringly clutching the bag in his hands, Iti notes that the captured prey can be transported back and forth to the mountains. It's very convenient. With an awkward smile, the girl agrees, although she mentally adds that she is scared by his behavior. From a small device, the girl pours clean water into a glass. She hands the glass to Iti. Clenching his hands into fists, the young man asks if it's drinkable. He takes a sip and notes that it is very tasty. Mentally, Kumugi notes that he really knows nothing about magic. Confidently turning towards the girl, Iti notes that she is incredibly cool. The young man explains that Kumugi uses so much magic that he has not seen before. However, the girl begins to awkwardly justify herself, saying it's not like that at all. Such spells are studied by all beginners, so there is nothing special compared to the others. The girl recalls her childhood when her relative said she wouldn't succeed, that magic wasn't suitable for her, and that she was good for nothing on her own. She remembers how her family laughed at her. Lowering her gaze, she awkwardly notes that she is capable of almost nothing. However, the young man begins to speak. He recalls that the blacksmith once told him that even the sharpest knife, if used clumsily, no matter how hard you try, cannot even handle jelly. On the other hand, according to him, any sharpened blade, if well maintained and clean, can cut even a boulder. The young man explains that the essence lies in what we invest in things. Komugi gave him water and made him happy with it, which is why he said she is cool. With shining eyes, E.T. calls her a good person. Clenching his fists and frowning discontentedly, E.T. notes that Desokurasu is always the only one who eats expensive food. And with such an annoyingly proud face, the young man exchanges glances with Ororo. Komugi shyly covers her eyes. Mentally, she notes that this guy is not as scary as she thought. Maybe Komugi and E.T. get acquainted. Then they notice Desokurasu sitting sadly. Ororo flies up to her and asks if she wants to join them. Well, then he waves his paw. There is nothing more inappropriate than a boss intruding on a cheerful group of young people. Desokurasu gets up and runs to the guys with a loud shout. She is with them. Desokurasu and Komugi start rolling on the floor. The young man exclaims in surprise, asking what is happening to them. The young man opens the curtain, causing the girls to freeze. He asks if they heard anything. The girls suggest that it was the wind. A little girl is running through the dark forest. She is crying because 3 whole sharks are chasing her. They are baring their teeth, and she is screaming, asking someone to help. She remembers how the man, her father, asked her to run, but she didn't want to leave her family. Now, with tears in her eyes, she runs and asks the witches for help. Suddenly, E.T. appears. He summons the Thunder Fox, and with one strike, takes out all 3 sharks. Komugi asks if the girl is injured. The girl asks fearfully if they are witches. The young man, after thinking, notes that a witch doesn't quite fit, so he is a wizard. With a smile, E.T. concludes that it's a lot of fun. This shark, he thought he had caught it, but it slips away. He urgently needs to train properly in magic. He turns to Komugi and asks her to teach him magic. The blonde girl refuses, mentally noting that the young man is still very creepy. E.T. puts his hand to his face and notes that he understands everything. It turns out that everything a shark bites completely freezes, which is why the village and its inhabitants have become chunks of ice. He turns to Creasy to find out the location of the village. Komugi notes that, by the way, it seems she likes E.T. The girl notices the little girl hanging behind the young man on his back. The village of Zhao's Tazanwood. Wrapping herself in a warm jacket, Komugi notes that the village is really frozen. She doesn't see any residents. E.T. asks Chrissy where her parents are. She replies that they are not here. E.T. surprisingly clarifies that they even moved while frozen, which is strange. Komugi adds that this is exactly what is described in the official report. Based on the words of the reconnaissance team, ice dolls made of ice and ice sharks attacked the residents and structures. Everything bitten was covered with a piece of ice. They revived some of the victims using a first aid spell, but the condition of the residents is critical, and they are under medical supervision. Looking at the girl with admiration, E.T. notes that she really knows everything. Blushing and covering her eyes, Komugi waves it off, saying she just read the report. In all reports about each village, victims were sooner or later found near the nearest bodies of water, so the lake should be checked first. They all intend to go there. They approach the lake, where there are several huge statues. The young man and the girls make discontented faces. They don't understand what this thing is. It's some kind of tastelessness. It's not hard to guess that this is a shark's lair. Chrissy cautiously inquires about the lock. Desokurasu approaches the girl, and, covering her eyes, utters the deep sleep spell Taff Taff. Komugi surprisingly catches the sleeping girl. She does not understand why the boss did this. Desokurasu asks to take a closer look. The girl opens her eyes wide in shock. From this lair protrude blocks of ice, and inside these blocks are people. These are the inhabitants of the village. E.T. notes with astonishment. The shark has a desire to kill people, and a habit of playing with its prey. The young man says, "Death for death." He adjusts his gloves. This magic must become the prize. Komugi nods in agreement. The young man starts shouting loudly, and the girl doesn't understand why he is doing this, as the shark might notice them. E.T. explains that a weak, timid creature will be afraid to show itself, but the one who is confident in their strength. A splash is heard from the lake. but the one who is confident in their strength will definitely emerge to respond to the thrown challenge. A huge shark appears from the lake. It bares its teeth. The squad exclaims, "This is the magic of Hisame." The shark shouts pompously, "They took a long time to get here," she calls them ugly cretins. Everyone freezes in shock. The fish continues, "And couldn't they have arrived any later? How long can it take to cross this hill? She finished applying makeup 100 years ago." She sighs, "And couldn't they have come on time, or at least tried?" She almost grew a mustache. Kuguna asks in surprise, "Is this Hisame magic?" The shark pompously replies that for her, she is Lady Hisame, and then calls the girl a potato face. But then she continues, her grace deeper than the sea, and she believes that she can overlook a couple of insults directed at her. Especially since the Abyss Witch herself has arrived to claim her. They say that Deisokurasu is the strongest witch in the world. For the Magica, summoning a mighty witch is a true honor. She already sees it. The beautiful Magica, the ravager of villages, against the greatest witch. What a picture, what a landscape. Finally, something worthy of her. Initially, her rough shout confused her, but this is something new. The Magica directly felt her enthusiasm. Looking resolutely at the witch, the shark shouts, "Come on, let her come to her, let her give everything she can." However, instead of the witch, a young man steps forward. His arms are crossed over his chest, and he looks resolutely at the shark. Magica opens her painted eyes in surprise. She asks for forgiveness and inquires who this young man is and what he is doing here. Desukaris explains that the thing is, he challenged the shark. E.T. approaches the lake and touches the surface. The young man summons the Thunder Fox. Desukarasu calmly observes, while Kumugi opens her eyes in surprise. Kula, struck, falls. E.T. calmly responds that it is ready. Kumugi shouts that nothing is ready and asks what he is doing. The young man calmly explains that it is an electric catfish trap. He recounts that long ago he saw a catfish paralyze a fish in the water. E.T. told a fisherman acquaintance about this, and he explained that catfish paralyze their prey with an electric discharge. Therefore, E.T. thought it was worth trying the same thing with Inazuri. Kumugi looks at him in surprise. He learns so quickly even though he acquired magic for the first time just a couple of days ago. She swallows, and E.T. smiles. The young man notes that it's time to pull the catch ashore. However, a fish appears behind. Magica notes that she even broke a nail. The shark admits that she knows who he is. He is that very witch boy. All the magicians are talking about an unusual person who somehow managed to obtain the Lord Uroro. A witch, but a man. At first, she didn't believe it, but he is indeed real. However, she will be straightforward. The young man is lousy. He doesn't even grasp the basics of magic. They, the magics, are special creatures. If one wants to hunt, they must pass their test. You can cut them into pieces, burn them to ashes, even saw them into dust, but until you pass their test, they will continue to revive again and again. The squad here are the participants, and the magic is the judge. Therefore, they must demonstrate sensitivity and creativity worthy of obtaining it. She, the magic Hisame, presents her test. She wants the most luxurious, the most stunning, the most astonishing designs. Yes, that's right. Her test will be to check their sense of taste and fashion. She wants them to make her a beauty. Magica, the ice shark Hisame. The challenge to obtain this shark is to make it a beauty. Kumugi reaches out her hand. She is ready. If you want to make something beautiful, you need flowers. You need to add a couple of pieces of what's currently popular in Natari, and everything is ready. Now the wonderfully beautiful costume for Magica is ready. A shark brightly decorated with flowers appears before them. Magica notes in amazement that this is a complete mess. The shark begins to criticize. No imagination, and these flowers are too flashy. Even if you spend a whole mountain of cute things, if her taste is lousy, the result will be trashy. The result? Kumugi failed. Desukarasu steps forward. She asks Kumugi to relax and sit aside to let the best handle this. The shark smiles. That's better. Now she will see how wonderful her sense of fashion is. Desukarasu points at her with a finger and orders her to listen carefully. True beauty does not come from appearance. No matter how luxurious or beautiful it becomes, If there is ugliness inside, it will never truly be beautiful. True beauty is born in the heart. Magica responds in shock, saying that she wasn't talking about that at all. Slightly disappointed, looking at the witches, the shark notes that she just asked them to dress her up, that's all. Majike Hisame doesn't care about their idealistic nonsense. Desukuras and Kumugi continue their attempts to dress the shark. However, she doesn't like anything. They try the postmodern style. The Magica responds that it's the best attempt, but still trash. The shark replies that she is a busy Magica and cannot spend the whole day on them. She will give that witch a chance and that's it. Magica threatens that if they fail again, she will go to another village. But before that, she will turn them all into icicles. It would be a shame not to turn them into ice sculptures. Magica thinks that the Abyss Witch will freeze in the form of a table, and she will do the boy witch a favor. He will make a wonderful ottoman. Together, they will create a simply killer interior. Magica remembers Kumugi, but she doesn't care about her, so she can leave. Desukaras calls a timeout. The shark agrees. Iti asks Kumugi if she is okay. Kumugi begins to cry about what they should do now. Making someone beautiful is too abstract a concept. How difficult it is. Desukarasu adds that the parameters of beauty depend on strictly personal opinion. They will definitely become blocks of ice. And there was only one chance left. Kumugi turns to Iti, who is sitting lost in thought. He mutters, "Inner beauty, the luxury of dressing up." Suddenly, something comes to the young man's mind. He smiles. With a sweet smile, Iti declares that he wants to try something. The girls look at him in bewilderment. The young man begins to offer options. The girls try to ask him questions, but he ignores them. They give him advice. Make the size as large as possible, then add this and that. Magica hangs disappointedly on the fountain. Pure disappointment. Both the strongest witch and the little witcher are just plain lame. Maybe she should move on to the next village. After all this chaos, she needs to enjoy the human suffering from turning into chunks of ice to relieve the tension. But suddenly, someone addresses her. Iti, sitting on the shore without clothes, declares that he is ready. Desukarasu calmly watches the shark, while Kumugi embarrassedly covers her face with her hands. Magica notes that she understands the young man has decided to emphasize sexuality. Iti replies that no, but the shark is outraged. If not, then what? Will he pull out a pole and start dancing on it? She doesn't understand what he is planning at all. Iti takes out his knife and summons the thunder fox Inadzuri. The shark is outraged. It's another attack. This is not inspiring at all. She knew that the little witcher would disappoint her. Suddenly, jumping up, the young man falls right into the shark's mouth. Magica, stunned, covers her face with her fins. She does not understand what is happening and what this young man is thinking about. Inside the stomach of the magician, Iti takes out a knife and summons the thunder fox Inadzuri. Magica flinches in shock. First, a light incision along the spine line, repeating over and over, each time plunging deeper. Magica opens her eyes wide in shock. The young man cuts the shark in half. This is the Ichi style. Blind fish. Slicing. But he is not finished yet. Once, many years ago, Iti was wandering at the foot of a mountain not far from the beach. There he saw a giant fish. Then suddenly, a giant man emerged from its guts. The young man was stunned. He actually screamed. The man said his name was Minakata. He was a wandering fisherman from a small island country in the east. He traveled the world to catch and record all kinds of fish. Minakata told little Ichi that he always wanted to gut a fish from the inside. But it would be a shame to get caught doing that, so he went into the mountains to train alone. He was a strange fellow, but at the same time, full of life. The stories of Minakata were amusing and rich. The young man liked them, and he learned a lot from him. Types of fish, how to catch them, how to clean them, even ritual dances for a big catch. Sometimes their opinions did not coincide, and they would start fighting, pummeling each other here and there. But still, the time spent together was to Ichi's liking. Of all the lessons, the most impressive to him seemed to be the culinary arts of his native country, Manakata. In particular, Ichi was struck by one recipe. Minakata said that it was a special dish where he expressed gratitude and respect to the caught fish by carefully preparing it and then beautifully presenting it on a plate. He demonstrated it in honor of celebrating their meeting. Thanks to Minakota, he was able to dissect the magic. Inche thanks that fisherman. He will forever remember his lessons. The young man shouts for the girls to carry the boat. Desukurasu utters a spell she asks to take shape, Baroque. The young man uses a knife and cuts the fish into 5 parts. Then he proceeds to decoration. Kumugi brings a flower for decoration. Finally, the young man finishes. This is Ichi's style, a luxurious boat with pieces of shark hisame. Now everything is ready. He asks to enjoy it, and he also recommends dipping each piece in sauce or seasoning. The shark is in shock. It doesn't understand what is happening to its body. This is literally the top of all tops. The shark exclaims. It's delightful, astonishing, overwhelming, even fashionably grotesque. After all, every inch of her body, both inside and out, is on display for everyone to see. She can't think of a single downside she has lost. The Witcher E.T. is such a formidable man. The shark admits that she wouldn't mind going on a date with him. Magica, flashing, disappears into the lake. The young man holds the magical stone Hisame with chopsticks. The young man looks sadly at the stone. It cannot be eaten. Desukurasu asks him to stop behaving dumber than he is. Kumugi asks him to dress in something normal. Iri thanks her and puts on a shirt. Kumugi inquires about their squad's mission to combat magic users who hate humans, but Desukurasu interrupts her, not allowing her to finish. The witch notes that it is important who will decide to jump into the maw of magic, to carve it from the inside. Kumugi agrees, one wrong step, and it's the end for you. Desukurasu notes that only he is capable of such a thing, precisely because he is who he is. Kumugi cautiously clarifies whether only Ichi is capable of something, for example. Desukurasu explains that mainly it's all sorts of idiocy. A dressed young man appears before them. The witch notes that it's already time to go home. But Kumugi reminds her about the residents when suddenly they hear someone's voices. The couple runs towards them, calling out the name Chrissy. They embrace the girl whom the squad recently rescued. These are her parents. Gradually, all the villagers thaw out and spring into action. Desukurasu explains that while the young man was busy cutting the fish, she quietly cast a defrosting and healing spell on them. The resident should definitely see a doctor, but no one died. Iroro notes that she is very meticulous. Kumuki notes that Mrs. Desukurasu is very striking. Chrissy waves to Iti. Her mommy and daddy have returned, and everyone else too. She is grateful that he saved them. Yuna smiles and strokes the girl's head. He is happy for her. The villagers crowd around them. They are surprised that he is a witch. But the boy, they talk about how he received the magic of Hisame. It's incredible. The villagers thank them. Kumugi notes that first they all need to see a doctor, and the ice around the village also needs to be melted. Thus, the Witcher Ichi completed his first mission. He completed his first mission and acquired the Magiku, the ice shark Hisame. Monogold, nicknamed the Golden Witch, announced the beginning of the meeting. She stood on a dais in a grand hall with high ceilings and curtains. Chairs were arranged around a long table, in which the conference participants were already seated. The magical atmosphere emphasized the importance of the event that was about to begin. Shirabedona, known as the Analytical Witch, spoke to the assembled group. She reminded the participants of the main topic of the upcoming discussion. The witch expressed this with enthusiasm, raising her index finger. Behind her, the Golden Witch was still on the throne, watching the proceedings. Shirabedona pointed to the mirror, which reflected the image of a young man. Ichi, known as the Witch Boy, was introduced to those present. He sat cross-legged, looking forward with a calm gaze. The other witches took notice of his appearance and began to discuss. The analysis witch held a report titled Discara's Adventures in her hands. On the cover was a journal depicting the battle against Hisame. At this time, Ichi and his companion were connecting to the conference via a magic mirror. Shirabedona began to talk about the contents of the report they had received. Shirabedona continued to announce the information provided by her student Kumugi. According to the report, Ichi had successfully mastered Hisame's magic. In addition to that, the youth already had the abilities of Uroro magic and Inazuri, Raikou magic. In total, he had collected 3 different types of magic. Shirabedona explained that the process of obtaining magic is complex and slow. Even under the most favorable conditions, it takes at least a week. She noted that differences in strength and compatibility can affect the speed. The witch reminded that those present as full-fledged sorceresses, understand this well. Shirabadona reported that in some cases, magic hunting takes a year or more. Witch records show cases where it took over 10 years. Against this background, Ichi's achievement was especially remarkable. He managed to master 3 magics in just 2 weeks. Shirabadona continued to analyze the report, focusing on the unusual speed. She emphasized that the speed at which Ichi was mastering magic was out of the norm. The witch stated that such speed was considered abnormal. Her face expressed interest and slight wariness. Shirabadona noted that Ichi has shown outstanding results despite being a rookie. Although he is mentored by Descara, this does not diminish his achievements. Thanks to his experience as a hunter, the young man has brought a new approach to the process of hunting magic. His methods have been described as truly revolutionary. Shirabadona emphasized another important point. She emphasized that the villagers were extremely grateful to Ichi for the help he had given. The witch expressed this by gesturing vigorously in her chair. Her demeanor remained lively and expressive throughout her report. The magical projection showed a scene involving Ichi and the villagers. The people joyfully surrounded the young man, who raised a tray of fish over his head. The witches present noted that they did not distrust him as a male witch. The villagers perceived him as a savior and sincerely expressed their gratitude. Shirabadona stated that the public was capable of accepting a man as a witch. She pointed out that the behavior of the residents confirmed this possibility. The witch enthusiastically emphasized the importance of this fact. She then expressed her intention to make a formal proposal. Shirabadona suggested that they stop hiding Ichi's existence as a witch. She raised her hand and voiced the idea of an official announcement. According to her, this information should be revealed to the entire world. The witch called the plan appropriate for the occasion, to avoid problems after possible publicity. There are many inquiries from different organizations regarding the events that have taken place. She clarified that everyone is interested in the origin of the giant forest that suddenly appeared on Mount Druid, and who exactly has mastered Uroro magic. Shirabadona agreed that there are more and more questions, and it is no longer advisable to hide the truth. Monogold silently confirmed this, acknowledging the situation. It is not yet possible to establish all the details of what is happening. There is insufficient information for final conclusions, and it is too early to draw conclusions. However, those present were promised that a full report would be prepared later. The situation remains under control and requires time for analysis. Circos noted that due to the current situation, he was overwhelmed to the point that he could no longer fully perform his duties. He expressed a desire to take a leave of absence, as working non-stop had left him exhausted. Until now, they had used Monogold's authoritative and intimidating aura to make excuses to outside agencies, claiming that the report was still being prepared. However, it had become obvious that such an excuse would no longer be able to stem the flow of questions and pressure from outside. Instead of continuing to waste energy on repelling the endless requests, it was suggested that Ichi be formally introduced and deal with the consequences later. It was suggested that such a solution would be much more effective in the long run. Shirabadona immediately noted that such a move would also bring significant benefits to the Witches' Association itself. Circos accepted the order without objection and expressed his willingness to follow the course adopted. Since Ichi was the first man in the world to be officially recognized as a witch, it was decided to link his name to the Mantanel Witch Association. Such a connection would make the organization famous far beyond the magical community and bring it to the attention of the entire world. It was felt that this was an opportunity that should not be missed. It was decided to immediately prepare and publish an official statement about his existence. The remaining members of the meeting expressed their agreement with the proposal to officially announce Ichi's existence. Some of them supported the initiative cautiously, citing the general opinion, while others confidently approved of the plan. It was also suggested that if Ichi could not withstand the attention of the world, then he was not suited for this role in the first place. The discussion ended with a unanimous agreement in favor of immediately publicly recognizing the boy as a witch. Shirabadona was convinced that the general opinion of the conference participants was in favor of the proposal. She enthusiastically walked over to the table where the official document was lying. The witch solemnly stuck her magic pen into the paper, completing the approval procedure. The document recorded the wording of the proposal to recognize Ichi as a witch and prepare a public announcement. One of the witches activated a powerful spell without saying a word. Her magic burst forth in the form of ice spikes, instantly covering the surrounding area with sharp, icy relief. The spoken name of the technique, River of Ice Nord, indicated a special type of ice flow. The immediate reaction of the surrounding environment confirmed the destructive power of this spell. Chikutoge Togayas, known as the Silver Snow Witch, openly disagreed with the decision. She stood on the ice platform, towering over the other participants in the meeting. Her cold gaze and reserved speech emphasized her serious attitude towards the situation. Those present took notice of her protest, and the atmosphere in the hall immediately changed. Chikutoge stood on the tip of her own ice spell, positioned at the back of the hall behind the main assembly. Her voice was clear as she announced her return and her stance against the general decision. The witch took a place opposed to the others, both physically and ideologically. Monogold's hat turned in her direction, reacting to the unexpected intervention. Chikutoge pointed out that Ichi's recognition as a witch in one small village did not mean he was ready for publicity. She emphasized that without proper magical education and theoretical training at a girls' school, his status remained superficial. The witch considered it risky to immediately reveal the existence of a boy witch to the world without full assurance of his safety. Shirobadona cautiously agreed, admitting that Ichi did indeed have no traditional magical training. Chikutoge admitted that she had only approved Ichi's acceptance as a witch because she trusted Shirobadona's judgment. However, she made it clear that she did not trust him as a person or consider his identity reliable. She also expressed concern that Ichi was accompanied by Descara, whom she found careless and irresponsible. Such an environment made her anxious and doubtful of Ichi's stability. Chikutoge expressed herself harshly, comparing Ichi to an untrained breed that would be easier to release into the mountains than to raise within the walls of an academy. In her opinion, he was incapable of calm learning and would not listen to his mentors like a model student. Shirobadona responded that this was precisely why he needed a full-fledged upbringing and training in the manners of a witch. One of the witches sarcastically reminded him that they were talking about a person, not a dog, emphasizing the harshness of the statement. Shirobadona insisted that Ichi should continue to learn through actual practice, including hunting and field assignments. She argued that constant interaction with the world around him would be the best form of learning for him. Chikutoge responded by calling such methods a sign of an inability to teach subtly, and expressed confidence that she herself would be a better mentor. Their argument degenerated into personal recriminations, including mockery of Chikutoge's awkward appearance at the meeting and mutual accusations of lying. One of the conference participants offered to take charge of Ichi's training, promising a strict and thorough approach. He stated that under his guidance, Ichi would become a respected witch that everyone could be proud of. Chikutoge, who stood nearby, looked calm, as if she supported this option. Shirobadona watched the situation unfold in surprise through the magic mirror. Chikutoge insisted that Ichi should take the examination at the research center and begin studying the theory of magic in the formal academic form. In response, Shirobadona sharply objected, claiming that a classical education would not suit him due to his characteristics. She insisted on a free form of training based on real-life conditions and constant practice. A tense verbal sparring broke out between the two witches, in which they repeated their positions almost in unison. After a lengthy squabble, Shirobadona suggested an unconventional way to resolve the dispute. She raised her hands and suggested a competition to determine which side would be right. Her suggestion was unexpected, but was taken seriously. Another witch, who had been watching the situation through the mirror, calmly agreed with this solution. It was decided that the outcome of the dispute would be determined through the next magic hunting task. If Togai succeeded in obtaining magic first, Ichi would be considered in need of additional training and sent to study. However, if the boy obtained magic before her, his abilities would be officially recognized and his existence would be announced to the world. Thus, Ichi's fate would be decided through a competition in which his true strength would be revealed. Shirobadona enthusiastically accepted the proposed conditions and expressed her readiness to begin the competition immediately. Her reaction was stormy and emotional. She immediately raised her fist in approval. Following this, the hall was filled with applause. The participants of the meeting supported the decision. Tagais, hearing the applause, reacted with surprise to what was happening, not fully realizing how quickly everything was decided. Ichi suddenly sneezed as he sat in the clearing next to Descaris and Komugi. He looked slightly cold, but he was cheerful despite the runny nose. He had no idea that an important decision had been made behind his back about the recognition competition. The entire structure of the test, including his participation, had been agreed upon without his knowledge or explanation. An unknown character walked slowly along a forest path, humming to himself. He noted that the forest had become especially noisy lately, as if witches had begun to gather there. Then he expressed the opinion that all this attention was probably connected with magics that hated people. Despite what was happening, he remained calm and moved on, leaving behind light, glowing traces. The creature moving through the forest suddenly rose up, enveloped in a soft light. It loudly declared that what was happening did not concern it and had nothing to do with it. Then it repeated questioningly why it should care at all. The object clearly did not want to interfere with the upcoming events and preferred to stay away. Giant mushrooms grew over the forest, disturbing the peace and causing alarm among the locals. The creature observing this assured that it did not disturb anyone and did not pose a threat. Meanwhile, in the city of Hoitaka, people in panic called out to the witch, begging her to protect them from the abnormal mushrooms. It was in this place that it was decided to hold a magical competition between Ichi and Togais. At the venue, both sides had gathered, ready for the test to begin. Ichi and Togais stood facing each other, a strong tension between them. The spectators and council members watched their meeting attentively, realizing the importance of what was happening. It was announced that both participants had arrived, and the test could begin. The enormous mushrooms continued to grow rapidly, spreading throughout the forest and threatening the surrounding settlements. The villagers cried out in desperation, begging the witches to save their town before it was completely crushed by the mushroom forest. They reported that the mushrooms were knocking down trees, spreading strange spores, and were appearing in greater numbers every day. Against this backdrop, the 12th magic hunt, known as Kindake magic, began. Tugis responded to the villagers' call without hesitation, promising to help. She placed her hand on her chest and declared that she would act using her name as the Silver Snow Witch. Her expression remained cold, and her demeanor was composed and confident. The people present watched her determination to fight with surprise and respect. Ichi cried out in delight when he saw the giant mushrooms spreading around the area. His eyes lit up at the massive harvest, and he immediately offered to gather the mushrooms for cooking. Komugi reacted with concern at his behavior, believing it to be dangerous, but Ichi showed no concern. The villagers discussed how many people could be fed with one such mushroom, guessing at its species. A magic spell called Blizzard Blows Regina was used against Ichi. A stream of snow and swirls burst out from the magic tool, instantly swirling the youth in an icy tornado. He reacted with surprise, not expecting the attack, and tried to maintain his balance within the magic stream. Ice symbols and snowflakes filled the space around, demonstrating the power of the spell used. Ichi was completely caught in the ice spell and lifted up by the whirlwind. Togais watched the scene with cold calm, holding the magic tool in her hand. She called the boy's behavior overconfident and emphasized his status by calling him Ichi the Witch. The power of her magic subjugated the space, and the inhabitants screamed in panic in the background. Togais stated with cold confidence that Ichi's behavior only proved her point. She found it unacceptable for such a rude and irresponsible person to represent the Mantanel Association. Coming closer, the witch reminded him that this was an official competition, not just a walk. Ichi, still reeling from the icy attack, tried to recover in front of the spectators. Tugis reminded Ichi of the conditions of their magical duel, noting that she was still an active member of the Mantanel Witch Association. She stated that if the boy managed to obtain the mushroom magic before her, he would be recognized as the first male witch in the world. This would be an official recognition of his power and status. The atmosphere between them remained tense, and Ichi listened attentively, aware of the goal at hand. Togais continues to lay out the conditions of the duel. If she is the first to obtain the magic, Ichi will be immediately transferred to the Mantanel Association's Girls' Magic School, where he will be registered as a test subject in a research facility. Then, looking Ichi straight in the eye, she emphasizes the seriousness of the situation by saying, "Your future depends on this competition. Are you ready for it?" The young man reacts with surprise to information about the competition that he did not know before. He claims that he was not told anything about it. The girl explains that she decided to show everything on the spot, as it would be faster. The people around her notice that they were forgotten to be told the details in advance. The blonde declares that he will personally supervise the hero's education at school. He plans to spend 12 hours a day hammering into him the basics of magic, history, and other important subjects. In 3 years, the student should become a respected witcher. He immediately rejects attempts to find out whether there will be time for hunting or fishing. The hero categorically refuses the curriculum proposed by the blonde. He declares that he will study with Kumuga and does not need another mentor. The boy calls himself wild and is convinced that he will not be able to sit still for even 5 minutes. In his opinion, people like him belong in the forest, not at a desk. The blonde offers clear conditions for the contest and specifies that help from team members is allowed. He emphasizes that only he and the warrior can receive the magic. The other participants can give advice but not interfere directly. The hero agrees to the conditions and confirms his readiness. The blonde man leaves with a serious expression, expressing his intention to prove how weak his rival is. He believes that these will be the hero's last days of freedom. The woman calls out to Tagaze to stop. The hero and his companion remain standing behind. Tagaze turns and confidently walks away as if nothing had happened. Her allies praise her for her composure and self-control. The woman with 2 buns of hair points out that the mushrooms are in the other direction. The blonde man stops and changes direction without commenting on his mistake. The girl in the beret anxiously asks Ichi what they should do now. The boy looks tense and doesn't know how to answer. The girl with 2 buns on her head irritably recalls that Tagaze had poor orientation even in her school years. She wonders how she didn't notice the huge mushrooms right in front of her. Ichi discusses the nature of hunting, calling it a duel between hunter and prey. He admits that there are exceptions, when 2 hunters choose the same target. Meanwhile, a boy sneaks through the forest, observing what is happening. In front of him, in the grass, sits a small animal that looks like a rabbit. Ichi is next to a large animal resembling a fox and recites a meditation on the reciprocity of death. The animal growls angrily, but the boy remains calm and focused. He resolutely grabs the small prey, pressing it to himself. At this time, the fox rushes at him, but he dodges, holding back the attack. The hero confidently declares that he will not allow his rival to outdo him in hunting. He adds that the hunter can become the hunted if he is not careful. The girl with braids watches him and admits that she has suddenly begun to sympathize with Tagaze. The young man smiles and calls himself an expert in mushroom picking, continuing to show confidence. The girl with 2 buns of hair says irritably that she wants to get it over with quickly, to humiliate Tagaze. She walks along with the others down the street, seething with anger. The young man turns around and asks not to forget about her. The friend walking next to her is perplexed as to who exactly he means. A mysterious man in a wide-brimmed hat walks slowly past the street, attracting attention. His face remains hidden, but he is watched closely. The guy turns around abruptly, looking after the stranger, fascinated. The girl calls out to Ichi and asks why he stopped and does not go further. Ichi walks down a busy street, thinking about what's going on. The group approaches a forest called Hoitaka, where giant mushrooms grow. A landscape of giant plants opens up before them, evoking disturbing thoughts. The companions note that they have encountered flashy magic again. A terrifying sight opens up before the 3 hunters. Huge crystals or ice formations that have grown right in the middle of the mushroom forest. They understand that their rival is not trying to act covertly, but, on the contrary, is acting demonstratively and provocatively. The group members freeze in place, assessing the scale of the magical intervention. Tension arises because the situation hints at a serious threat ahead. Tagaze uses magic to build an ice wall, completely blocking the city from the rest of the territory. The mushroom spread slows down, indicating that magic is affecting the ecosystem of the area. The girl, observing what is happening, concludes that her rival is going to freeze the mushrooms and get magic directly from them. The companions notice that Tagaze has skillfully outlined the battlefield, which is the basic principle of magic hunting. The boy notices that the mushroom has not yet appeared, despite all the noise and movement around. He assumes that the magician most likely belongs to one of the more timid species, preferring to remain in cover. Meanwhile, his companion begins to sense a strange presence behind her, but does not immediately pay attention to it. Unnoticed by her, one of the mushrooms comes close, continuing to remain hidden from her sight. The girl suddenly notices the creature right behind her and starts screaming loudly in horror. Frightened, she runs towards her friend to hide and calm down. Suddenly, the mushroom-like creature starts making excuses and explains that it didn't want to scare anyone, it just stood still. It adds that the girl herself is to blame, as she looked like she was part of the tree. The creature is outraged that someone froze his mushrooms, and in a panic asks what the uninvited guests want. The black-haired guy directly states that they came to hunt him, which causes the creature even more shock. The mushroom incredulously asks if he really became their target. After a short pause, he realizes what is happening and concludes that it is time for the seasonal hunt. The mushroom happily assumes that these are his admirers and enthusiastically declares this. Meanwhile, the boy calmly refutes his guess, specifying that they arrived as fighters. The words immediately confuse the creature, and it looks visibly puzzled. Confused, the mushroom makes an incomprehensible sound and remains perplexed. The mushroom is surprised to hear the word exterminators and asks again with disbelief. The youth explains that the forest being filled with mushrooms near the city is creating a serious problem. He adds that such actions are more typical of a magic who is hostile to humans. The creature exclaims in amazement that he is really considered to be hating humans. Magic is perplexed as to why he is considered an enemy and asks a question. The girl asks him if he even listened to their explanation. She is indignant that he does not understand the reasons for concern. The creature replies that he sees nothing wrong with a large number of mushrooms. Mehdi continues to insist on his position and is perplexed. He confidently claims that all living creatures adore mushrooms. His gestures convey genuine surprise. He does not understand why his actions cause discontent. Maijik explains that mushrooms are worshipped as gods. He is genuinely surprised that not everyone performs the sacred dance Shroomy Shroom at least once a week. The others listen with bewilderment and slight disbelief. One of the companions admits that this sounds funny, but the others consider such a statement meaningless. Frustrated and hurt, the magic mushroom suddenly loses its composure. Upon hearing that he is about to be acquired, he bitterly realizes how unlovable mushrooms are. Tears roll down his cheeks, and he makes an ominous decision. If people do not love mushrooms voluntarily, he will force them to become part of the mushroom ecosystem, turning everyone into mycelium carpets. Introducing himself as Kindake Magic, the mushroom announces the conditions of his test. To collect him, hunters must cut off his stalk. However, he immediately complicates the task. He plans to escape, spreading mushroom spores everywhere, turning people and animals into mycelium carpets. A dangerous and unpredictable chase begins. The mushroom magician Kindake finally loses control of himself, waving his tentacles furiously, and with a fanatical expression on his face, he declares that those who do not worship mushrooms are unworthy of life. He rushes away, leaving a trail of mycelium in his wake, turning his escape into a deadly threat. After a crazed mushroom mage escapes deep into a forest overgrown with giant mushrooms, the team realizes with disbelief and anxiety that they must now track down this tiny yet extremely dangerous enemy among the countless mushrooms that fill the forest. Ichi and his partner look at each other tensely, fully prepared for a new test, and below appears the cold and determined figure of Togechi, the Snow Witch, satisfied with the course of events, as if confident of her inevitable victory. A mage in a long cloak stood in the center of the magic circle and confirmed that the ice barrier was fully activated. Around him was a frozen landscape with ice formations and sharp peaks. The surface was covered with circular structures and symbols. The entire area looked prepared for an important operation. The girl with short blonde hair showed an image of the creature in the mirror and described its approximate height as about 6 inches. She explained that to catch it, she had to cut the vine attached to its body. The man in the cloak listened attentively to the instructions. Afterwards, he praised her for the operation and allowed her to retreat. The man adjusted the beret on the student's head, reminding her of the importance of a neat appearance. He demanded that she always remain dignified, disciplined, and beautiful. Then he sternly emphasized that a representative of the Witches' Association must remain neat so as not to tarnish her name. The girl confirmed that she understood his instructions. 2 girls were watching the proceedings through a magic mirror placed on the table. One of them was wondering how the competition would go. The other was wondering who would be the first to catch the mushroom creature named Magic. Both looked interested in the outcome of the proceedings. The girl in the hat noted that Ichi had an unconventional approach to hunting magical creatures. She emphasized that it was impossible to predict his actions, which made him interesting to watch. At the same time, she reminded that Togechi remained a difficult opponent. Her companion listened attentively, expressing no doubts. The girl with glasses stood next to a mage known for his success in ice magic. Her experience included 16 successful captures of magical creatures. Both had an innate talent for magic and became witches at the age of 11. This achievement did not surprise the members of the association. A girl with 2 tails ran down the hallway, holding food in her hands and continuing to eat. 2 other girls walked next to her, one of whom looked irritated. The conversation was about the achievements of one of the witches, who had installed a magical security system at the age of 14. They mentioned the frequent antics of Descaris and Togechi's attempts to restrain them, because of which there were almost no peaceful days in those days. The witch in the white hat spoke of the importance of caring for the well-being of the Mantanel Witches Association. She emphasized that Togechi was the one who cared most about her reputation and order. The woman's face reflected seriousness and respect for what she said. Her words sounded like an acknowledgement of effort and dedication. The long-haired witch thought about the future of the Mantanel Witch Association. She turned to an invisible interlocutor named Shirabe and mentioned a possible threat to herself. After that, she expressed her intention to appoint Togechi as her successor. Her decision was accompanied by a calm smile and a confident look. The witch in the black robe explained that Togechi's care was shown through her actions. She mentioned that she was against Ichi entering the magical world. The reason was her concern for the future of the Witch Association. The girl in the beret was surprised by this explanation and expressed her reaction. The woman in the hat pondered the future leadership of the association and emphasized that Togechi would be the best choice. She explained that, given the unpredictability of the other witches, Togechi was the right person to lead. The girl in the beret inquired about her chance, but was firmly rejected. The name Descaraz was also rejected as unacceptable. The young mage sat at a table in a spacious room and remembered the girl who was the most dedicated to the cause. He noted her as serious, hard-working, and unselfish compared to the others. Another figure flashed past the window, but he was focused on his thoughts. The next second he looked away, saying a word with strong feeling. A young mage stood atop an icy peak, his staff raised high. A magic circle formed beneath his feet, and snow symbols flashed in the air. His face remained calm and focused. This was Chikutoge Togechi, known as the Silver Snow Witch. Chikutoge Togechi cast the spell while standing on top of the ice platform and raising her staff. A magical portal surrounded by shards of ice opened around her. A large, clawed hand emerged from the portal, reaching out. The mage remained in place, watching the summoned creature emerge fully. Chikutoge Togechi stood before the summoned creature, made of ice and resembling a dragon. The creature had multiple heads and a terrifying appearance. The mage reminded everyone present of the need to be dignified, disciplined, and maintain beauty. Her words were addressed to everyone nearby. The students who were watching the summoning of the ice creature expressed admiration for their teacher. One of the girls with short hair enthusiastically confirmed the master's instructions. The second one, standing next to her, looked shocked and in complete delight. Several more people were watching them, standing on the back of the ice beast. Togechi adjusted her glove and prepared herself for action. The witch in the hat explained that, although she was strict as a teacher, her students truly respected her. She emphasized that if you take your studies seriously, you can learn a lot. Meanwhile, the mage extended her hand forward, activating magic. The ice creature, summoned by Togechi, released a powerful stream of magical energy. The wave of power spread forward, breaking through the air and the ground. At the bottom of the stage, the creature found itself among mushrooms and magical creatures. It continued to advance, destroying everything in its path. Togechi gave the order to freeze every section of the forest, and the student confirmed the readiness. Behind them stood the summoned creature, ready to act. Meanwhile, the girl in the hat, who was watching the fight, suggested that the mage might be too straightforward in the fight. She asked with a smile how Ichi was going to respond to such an attack. The girl in the beret said with a sly smile that she couldn't wait to see how things would turn out. Her gaze expressed confidence and anticipation of the spectacle. In the next frame, the mushroom creature was shaking with fear. Its body was covered in sweat, and its movements were tense. The mushroom-bodied creature noticed the mushrooms around it were beginning to freeze. It watched in panic as the ice beast advanced, not knowing where to hide. The forest was rapidly freezing, leaving it with no way to escape. The creature panicked, realizing it had no escape route. The mushroom creature shivered, realizing that it had nowhere to run from the freezing forest. The thought of someone finding it entered its mind. It crouched against a tree, crouching, trying to hide. Sudden footsteps made it flinch and shrink even further into its shelter. A young man with an enlarged eye and a wide pupil suddenly appeared from behind a tree. He leaned forward and told the mushroom creature that he had found it. The creature responded with a sharp cry of terror. In the corner, a scene of a hunter jumping in pursuit of a target was visible. The mushroom creature was panicking and trying to figure out how it had been found again. It remembered all its hiding places, and couldn't explain why the hunter had found it every time. The young man with the monocle confidently pursued the target, leaving it no chance to hide. The creature continued to rush around and scream in fear. The mushroom creature was breathing heavily, hiding behind a huge mushroom. It was thinking about witches, expecting them to cast large and colorful spells. An ice creature was nearby, radiating a threat. Comparing the situation with expectations, the creature looked confused and worried. A young man in glasses and a mask stood among the mushrooms with a weapon in his hands, preparing to attack. He calmly announced that there would be mushroom soup for dinner. His gaze was focused, and his intentions were obvious. The mushroom creature, terrified, tried to understand who was in front of him and how to stop him. A girl with short hair walked along a forest path, humming happily and holding a stick with a leaf on it. Scattered around her were objects that hinted at the dangers lurking among the mushrooms and plants. The text explained that in this world, mushroom hunting is not an ordinary stroll. Instead, it is the most dangerous journey one can undertake. The man lay unconscious on the ground, mushrooms and fallen food scattered around him. Spores were spreading through the air, causing immediate breathing problems. One of the mushrooms released substances that irritated the skin when simply touched. The scene underscored the deadly danger these forest organisms pose. The young man spoke about the deadly danger associated with inexperienced mushroom picking. He emphasized that random selection without knowledge can lead to death. Previously, he himself almost died several times, until he learned to distinguish safe mushrooms from poisonous ones. The main rule, according to him, is to be well prepared. The guy in glasses reminded that it was necessary to protect not only the arms and legs, but also the eyes and mouth. In the background next to him were two others, also tightly protected from possible danger. He emphasized that trampling and behaving randomly among the mushrooms was an extremely bad idea. In the last panel, an ice creature appeared, increasing the tension of the situation. The three girls knelt down, breathing heavily and expressing regret. They turned to Togechi, calling her master and begging for forgiveness. Their faces reflected tension and remorse. All three were inside the magic circle and clearly felt guilty for what had happened. One of the girls explained that they had activated a protective barrier, but it had failed. She complained of nausea, dizziness, and skin irritation. Togechi told her to focus on recovery and healing. She was surprised that the spores were so strong that they broke through the standard magical defense. Togechi looked closely at the illusion or magical image of a dangerous, poisonous mushroom. Images of two varieties appeared before her, covered in slime and emitting a threat. The two students standing nearby cried out in alarm when they saw what was happening. Their faces reflected fear and concern for their mentor. Togechi, with a cold expression, activated the spell, calling its name. Her hand pierced the mushroom creature with a thin blade. Ice crystals began to spread around the sword. The power of the spell was aimed at completely destroying the target. The frozen mushroom creature crumbled under Togechi's spell. The blade of her sword was covered in shards and slime from the target. The students watched the attack finish, one commenting on the creature's disgusting appearance. Togechi stood calmly, holding her weapon with an indifferent expression. The bespectacled boy assessed the situation, covering his mouth with his hand and thinking about his strategy. He came to the conclusion that the magical creature needed to be destroyed with one precise blow. Togechi stood nearby, holding a blade in front of her face. She firmly declared that she would no longer hold back. The young man discussed the magical mushroom's behavior, noting that it was easy to track by the damp corners at the base of trees. He claimed that he could predict the places where the creature was most likely to hide. The main problem was its high speed and the fact that its equipment prevented it from moving quickly. In the end, he concluded that everything depended on the correct calculation of speed and the moment of attack. The young man with a confident expression showed the rope and suggested setting a trap. He explained that this was the best way to deal with a fast enemy. Then he addressed one of the girls standing nearby by name. Hearing her name, she reacted with surprise, not expecting to be addressed. The mushroom creature was out of breath as it made its way through the dense mushroom thicket. It remembered the hunter who was chasing it, calling him a madman who was killing mushrooms. In despair, it wondered if all humans were like this, and if they were worth becoming part of the mycelium. Despite this, it dreamed of having many admirers, but without such pursuit. A tired mushroom creature wandered through the undergrowth, looking for a safe place to rest. It dreamed of a calm and quiet corner full of soft mushrooms. The creature's thoughts were focused on simply sleeping in safety. Its steps became slower, and the desire to find shelter grew stronger. In a dark, damp hole surrounded by roots, moss, and rotten leaves sat a girl covered in vegetation. Her clothes and body were partially fused with mushrooms and moss. The mushroom creature watched her in amazement, unable to believe what it saw. It realized that before it was something completely fused with the forest environment. The mushroom creature was delighted to find the girl, who had merged with nature as the perfect place to grow. It marveled at the damp air, the rotting vegetation, and the darkness. In its opinion, it was the most luxurious environment imaginable. The creature enthusiastically declared that it had found the best mushroom home. The mushroom creature enthusiastically pressed itself against the girl, dreaming of growing different types of mushrooms on her. It listed the names of spores and forms, imagining how it would transform her body into a perfect mushroom bed. The girl began to sweat, feeling tense and uncomfortable. At this time, someone called out to Ichi in a panic, trying to intervene. One of the heroes rushed forward with incredible speed, activating powerful booster boots. His goal was to instantly attack as soon as the trap was triggered and the creature was immobilized. In his hand, he clutched a hook, preparing to strike. In the background, the other team members watched the action unfold. One of the heroes reminded the team that they only had one chance, and it all depended on pure speed. He rushed forward, his hand outstretched towards the target. The small, mushroom-like creature watched in fear. The hero's eyes reflected complete concentration and determination to complete the task. One of the characters suddenly felt a bloodlust directed at him and reacted with surprise to the approaching enemy. The black figure moved forward with lightning speed, clearly intending to attack. The next second, the trap was activated, and the ground around them changed dramatically. The team found themselves surrounded by giant mushrooms, creating a ring that left no escape route. One of the characters declared with a determined expression that he was going to possess a magical creature. He commanded the creature called Helganma to swallow the target whole and freeze it. A huge monster burst out of the ground with an open mouth full of crystals, rushing forward. The attack was accompanied by the destruction of the surface and the fearful reactions of those around. The robed witch loudly proclaimed that on behalf of the Mantanel Witch Society, she was obliged to retrieve the magical creature. The girl, caught in the vine, screamed in panic to her companion, begging him to cut the vine. Her eyes reflected fear and despair as she turned to him. The boy quickly jumped up with a knife to free her. The boy, with a serious expression on his face, pushed off the ground and rushed forward, flying past his opponent and the huge monster. The girl watched his actions in confusion, not understanding why he deviated from the plan. She screamed his name and asked in a panic where he was going. The situation had escalated, and there was almost no time to think. The boy, rising into the air, realized that the source of the intense bloodlust was not among those fighting nearby. His gaze focused on another figure, towering over the trees. The girl in the hat slowly reached for her brooch, realizing that the situation was much more serious than it seemed. She also felt the same icy chill and an instant surge of dangerous energy. The boy rushed forward with a dagger, and the man in the robe met him with a staff, without losing his composure. They collided in the air, not taking their eyes off each other. After the blow, the young man continued to approach and said with surprise that in front of him was a magician. His face lit up with realization, and the enemy silently watched what was happening. The magician slowly looked up and said a short greeting, calling the name Uroro. His face remained serious, and his eyes were fixed on the front. The boy reacted to this, looking at his opponent tensely. The atmosphere remained tense, foreshadowing another clash. After a tense conversation, the guy's body suddenly changed dramatically, turning into a dark, comical form. His companions, noticing the strange changes, began asking questions about what had happened. One of them suggested that this could be a new prank. However, the guy briefly replied that this was not a game. The white-haired mage looked at the boy's distorted figure with obvious disdain. He did not hesitate to describe the situation with one word: pathetic. The boy in black remained silent, giving no explanation. The tension between them increased. The guy with the knife regretfully confirmed his acquaintance with the magician, whom he had clearly been avoiding. He admitted that he had tried to hide and not give away his presence. The magician in the hat stood to the side and admitted that he was the last person he wanted to meet. The situation was becoming increasingly tense. The guy exclaimed that he wasn't crazy, angrily explaining that he'd simply felt a surge of bloodlust. He angrily scolded his partner for running straight toward the source of danger. He then complained that nothing good had happened to them since acquiring. The other character asked him again, surprised. Acquired. One of the mages turned to Uroro in surprise, asking with distrust whether he really obeyed this little mouse. He looked at the boy with disdain. At that moment, the boy himself quickly soared into the air with a determined expression on his face. His body was directed straight at the enemy, as if he was preparing to attack. The boy continued to rush forward, looking ahead with concentration. His gaze was determined, and he clutched the weapon in his hand. He then crossed the edge of the forest, leaving the treetops behind. His movement left a visible trace of the dash in the air. The wizard in the hat addressed the boy, calling him a mouse, and noted his reaction to the bloodlust. He called it a biological response and demanded that he look at him. Then he asked him what he saw. The boy silently stared forward, looking intently into his opponent's eyes. The guy calmly replied that he sees death, watching the magician. A dark image of a skeleton appears behind the latter, symbolizing his bloody past. The magician, without looking away, asks how many people he killed. The guy freezes in response, seriously looking into the face of his opponent. The boy jumps and looks up, noticing something strange in the sky. A huge dome-shaped structure made of bones and black liquid is starting to form above the forest. He exclaims in surprise, trying to figure out what exactly is happening. From the top of a tree, he watches as an ominous barrier closes over him. The unknown girl with glasses looked ahead sullenly, showing no emotion. The next moment, everyone found themselves inside strange bone structures hanging in the air. The magician in the hat looked around in surprise, realizing that their surroundings had changed. From inside one of the domes, a question was heard about where they were. The girl asked in a panic when they had arrived at this place and what the strange dome was. The older girl with glasses admitted that she did not know the answer. Then she remembered how Ichi suddenly rushed off somewhere without explanation. After that, Master Togechi appeared, froze the mushroom magician, and took possession of him. The girl described that at some point she felt as if something had pushed them away. In the next frame, the girl in glasses looked forward intently and said the word scope. The girl noted that only witches and cadets were thrown out from under the dome. The guy with dark hair added that all the inhabitants were still inside. She looked at what was happening in surprise and said the name Descaras. The girl with black braids stared at the dome and quietly said that this was the barrier. The next second, she suddenly moved from her place and headed towards the center of the clearing. Another girl called out her name in alarm, trying to stop her. However, Descaras continued to move forward despite the call. Through the magic mirror, Togechi tried to call Master Monagold, reporting the dangerous situation. The voice in response told her to calm down and listen. The witch reported that they had encountered a completely unexpected phenomenon. With a serious expression, she declared the introduction of the Code 00 protocol and warned of a level S threat. The girl asked in surprise about S-level magic, and another character said that they had received a prophecy from the Association Oracle. The witch specified the exact time when the event would occur in 15 minutes. Below is a huge magic dome covering the area. According to the prophecy, the eastern city of Hoitaka and its surroundings will be subject to distortion. One of the characters anxiously asked what distortion meant, and received confirmation that this was the magic in question. The interlocutors then admitted that nothing was known about this magic, neither its power, nor the test to obtain it, nor its appearance. All they knew was that it first appeared 15 years ago. Moreover, it appeared absolutely without warning. An association representative explained that magic known as divine magic had the ability to distort and transport entire sections of the world. This power, called King's Magic, was considered the greatest threat. One instance of its use caused a section of a mountain 3 miles in diameter, including 2 cities, to instantly disappear. The scene was accompanied by the appearance of twisted creatures, emphasizing the scale of the disaster. A mysterious man with a staff appeared in the swirls of darkness and spoke of a destructive magic called World Hater Magique. He reminded the question that had been asked of him earlier. His gaze remained cold as he calmly began to answer. The man rephrases the question, repeating, "How many people have I killed?" The man with the staff clarified that the question should have been different. Not, "How many has he killed?" but "How many is he going to kill?" In the background, a dome is visible, covering the entire city, and the inhabitants look at it with alarm. Another character warned that this magic is not a joke, and ordered to leave as soon as possible. The boy, with a serious look, turned to his partner with a request to activate it immediately. The dark creature confirmed that it was indeed magic and warned of possible death if any mistake was made. It insisted on an urgent evacuation before anything or anyone could trigger the spell. The hero listened carefully and agreed to the plan. The creature asked if he understood the seriousness of what was said. The dark creature tried to stop the hero, anticipating his decisive action. The boy, full of determination, loudly called out to the magician standing at a distance. He said that his name was Ichi and took a step forward, not hiding his intention to intervene. The situation was heating up, and the tension was growing with each passing moment. Ichi confidently declared that he was a witch and was going to hunt the mage. He loudly warned his opponent to be prepared for the upcoming fight. His posture and facial expression conveyed determination and defiance. The mage with the hat watched him silently, showing no emotion. The mage stood in silence with an indifferent expression while Ichi defiantly waited for an answer. One of the observers was surprised that the witch could be a man. Ichi loudly reminded that he had introduced himself, and now it was the mage's turn. At this time, the other characters began to discuss Ichi, mocking his impudence and naivete. The mage turned away indifferently, chuckling and stating that it didn't matter. He showed no interest in Ichi's introduction and brushed the situation aside. Ichi reacted with surprise at such indifference. His expression showed confusion and slight irritation. Togechi declared the action to begin and warned everyone to leave the area if they did not want to be destroyed. Ichi noted with surprise that it looked threatening. The mage with the staff stood in the center of the magic circle, preparing for the ritual. Snow streams swirled around him, increasing the tension of the moment. A strange creature with wings and a face hidden by bandages appeared inside the magic circle. It folded its hands in a prayer gesture, as if responding to the magician's call. Ichi watched in surprise, not taking his eyes off the figure. The magical energy continued to grow, filling the space around with light and tension. The mage activated the spell, and dozens of identical creatures with closed eyes appeared before him. They all stood in a line and folded their hands as if in prayer, preparing for the command. At the mage's command, the figures simultaneously pointed their spears towards the forest. A wave of magical energy moved forward, like a targeted strike on a given target. The enormous figures began to plunge their spears into the ground, causing powerful waves of energy to erupt. The ground beneath them began to crumble, and seething masses rose from beneath their feet. The energy spread rapidly through the forest, destroying everything in its path. The wave of destruction moved forward in a smooth front, sweeping away trees and vegetation. Massive roots began to emerge from the ground, wrapping themselves around the figures. These roots grew at an unnatural rate, breaking through the forest floor and spreading further. Sharp formations formed between them, emitting a strange glow. As they advanced, the row of figures left a line of destruction behind them, covering ever larger swaths of territory. One of the heroes watches the strange figures approach, and notes that they distort everything they touch. He calls what is happening a moving line of death, emphasizing the level of threat. Panic begins in the city. Residents run through the streets in fear. People scream about the end of the world. Some call the approaching creatures monsters. A crowd of panicked citizens are confronted by a sudden obstacle. People scream that they cannot get through the wall. Some are surprised that the obstacle came from somewhere. The atmosphere of chaos increases, as there is no escape route. People are screaming and crowding in panic, begging to be let out. Some are asking to let their children go first, hoping to save at least them. There is fear and despair, as the barrier still prevents escape. Loud screams and cries can be heard from the crowd due to the panic. The black silhouette notices that the villagers have finally realized the threat. He points to the advancing line, consisting of angelic creatures. The character addresses the interlocutor, hinting at the obviousness of what is happening. The situation remains tense, and the enemies continue to advance. The character in the black mask realizes that the situation is getting out of control. He demands immediate activation and exit from the encirclement. He suggests using any available force to avoid death. His eyes flash, emphasizing the seriousness of his intentions. A figure wearing a wide hat and a crown appears above the forest. He hovers in the air with chains stretched out, resembling hearts. His appearance is distinguished by grace and confidence. The character is clearly preparing for decisive action. The warrior in the hat notices the appearance of a new opponent and watches him closely. The figure in the crown addresses him provocatively, suggesting that he is trying to escape. The hero denies this, confirming his determination to stay. A tense exchange of glances begins between them. The hero walks through the forest and reflects on his approach to hunting. He notes that he has never perceived hunting as something safe. Regardless of the target, be it a rabbit or a more dangerous animal, he always accepted the risk. In his opinion, in every hunt there is a threat of death, regardless of the prey. The hero ponders the nature of mortal combat and notes that death has no size. He believes that it all comes down to the pure desire to kill. His gaze meets his opponent's, and the moment is imprinted in his memory. He realizes that his heart sank in that moment. The warrior in the hat directs his gaze at his opponent, not looking away. He exclaims his desire to hunt the monsters standing before him. His eyes show determination and excitement for the battle. He deftly pulls out his weapon, demonstrating his readiness to engage in combat. The hero admires his enemies, calling them majestic and difficult targets. He notes that these creatures are unlike anything he has ever encountered. Clutching the artifact, he expresses amazement at Magic's abilities. He concludes by saying that he cannot imagine a more exciting hunt than this one. The character activates the ability by raising his hand up and releasing a huge stream of energy. The beams shoot into the sky, causing surprise among the people watching from the side. They do not understand what is happening, mistaking the sparkling objects for snow. A glowing fish appears in the sky, causing confusion among the onlookers. The hero orders an attack, releasing a huge glowing bird. The creature rushes forward, heading straight for the line of angelic creatures. One of the enemies is struck by the blow, his body being torn apart by a powerful wave of energy. The warrior in the hat watches the attack and activates his defense. A girl with short blonde hair gives a loud command, looking forward with a serious expression. Her eyes are wide open, commanding not to look away. Kamugi's name is mentioned in the address. The answer follows immediately, the subordinate's voice confirming the readiness to carry out the command. The girl continues to command with a determined expression on her face. She forbids stopping the recording, raising her voice. Sweat appears on her forehead, and her hand with the pen moves quickly. The answer again sounds affirmative, emphasizing complete submission. The young man gives the command to attack again, pointing his hand forward. The girl with the pen watches what is happening with anxiety, preparing to record. The witch on the monitor demands that every little detail be recorded in writing. The masters confidently repeat that everything must be written down, because this is the only thing they can do now. The winged creatures continue to crumble under the force of the magical attack. One by one, their bodies crack as if power were breaking through from within. Explosions of energy crash down with another wave, completely destroying the upper half of the row of figures. Their faces are distorted into grimaces, and their bodies quickly crumble. The ice continues to spread across the field, destroying the front edge of the advancing line of creatures. The magical pulse reaches the center, creating a brilliant flash in the sky. One of the mages watches with attention, his face reflecting the tension. The hooded girl is happy at what she sees, watching the attack through a mirror. The mage in the center of the clearing is trapped in a block of ice. His face remains calm. Around him, the monster statues are frozen, covered in a thick layer of crystallized ice. The people in the village notice the end of the attack and discuss what they have seen with surprise. Against the background of the forest, the entire enemy line can be seen to have stopped and frozen in an icy shell. The ice that was holding the mage began to crack and crumble into small pieces. He slowly steps out, holding a staff in his hand, surrounded by magical sparks. His gaze is determined. He looks towards the horizon. The mage's hand rises, and he clenches his fingers, as if preparing for the next move. A young hunter with dark hair and determination steps out of the shadows to meet the mage. His eyes are downcast, and he walks slowly but surely, as if listening to his opponent's words. The wind blows the leaves at his feet. He raises his head, lifting his chin slightly with a disdainful smirk, and says defiantly, "HMPH, what arrogance!" The two opponents face off on a raised platform, the tension between them like a bolt of electricity. One says with cold disdain, "So you temporarily halted their advance. So what? It means nothing." The other counters with icy calm, "If you think that's enough to hunt me, you're a fool." In a swift move, full of determination and without a moment's hesitation, the white-haired character strikes his opponent's face, a moment of silent fury and absolute control. A cut appears on the opponent's face, but he only grins, taking the bleeding wound as something funny. "Ah," he sarcastically replies, while the other stands with an icy expression, not lowering his staff, ready for anything. The warrior with the disheveled hair holds his opponent by the neck and studies him closely. He notices that there is too much fabric wrapped around his neck and concludes that there is a possible vulnerability. However, when he feels it with his hand, he realizes that he was wrong. Smiling, he admits that there is no weak spot. The blonde man in the loose robe notices that his opponent has suddenly become active. He looks in surprise at the warrior who has cut himself in the leg. It turns out that he plunged the blade into his thigh to avoid losing consciousness. Looking up, the wounded man calmly asks a counter-question. A warrior with wild hair pins an enemy against a wall, holding a knife to his neck. He asks where exactly the mage's weak point is. Lists possible vulnerabilities, including the head, heart, and limbs. Also suggests that a special condition may be required to win. The mage looks up at his opponent, saying his name. He smiles calmly despite the knife pressed to his throat. The blade touches his skin, but the mage shows no fear. He then steps back and says that the warrior overestimated his strength. The white-haired mage lifts the warrior's arm, piercing it with a spell. He claims that if the enemy had used Uroro to break through the barrier, perhaps some of the people in the city would have been saved. However, he says that due to the enemy's overconfidence, everyone is now doomed to die. The mage declares that he will begin the destruction with him, distorting his body beyond recognition until nothing remains. The enemy casts explode Lapta, aiming a blow at the mage. A stream of energy rushes straight into the chest, piercing it through. The mage's body shudders from the unexpected attack. He does not have time to dodge and receives a serious injury. A woman with a sword appears in the circle of magic, holding the wounded hunter by the neck. She is surrounded by a powerful aura. The energy swirls around her and creates a vortex. The warrior makes it clear that the enemy will be defeated right here and now. She is ready to engage in battle without a second's hesitation. The defeated mage lies on the ground, badly wounded and immobilized. A dark-skinned woman with a confident look and a calm expression bends over him. She calls herself Diskaras without hesitation, emphasizing her merits and strength. The woman's words sound with a clear self-esteem and a sense of her own superiority. The woman in white draws her blade and prepares to attack, taking a fighting stance. The title of the chapter appears against her figure, emphasizing its importance. The defeated mage is thrown aside, unable to continue the fight. She pushes him away, demonstrating determination and confidence in her strength. The blonde notes with disbelief that the barrier has been broken, emphasizing the combat level of the opponent. The girl calls herself the greatest and most powerful witch, entering the magic circle. Her confidence is unquestionable. She calmly approaches and looks forward. Having introduced herself, she emphasizes her exclusivity and strength. The blonde doubted the girl's words about her power and noted her modest appearance. She indignantly stated that she was wearing ultra-modern clothes. He recalled the event that had happened 15 years ago in the Polaris Mountains. The magician assumed that she was the culprit. The wizard couldn't remember which areas he had destroyed. He doubted it mattered and asked if she had lost loved ones there. The girl didn't answer directly, but she noted that her actions were based on revenge. Her eyes reflected anger, hatred, and sadness. The wizard stood before a formation of 6 angelic beings held by magical crystals. He created a portal of darkness, claiming that anger and sadness had no meaning. He said that everything eventually fades into nothingness, and there was no point in suffering. After finishing his speech, he suggested that the witch try to delay her inevitable death. Descaris stood in the center of a complex magical structure, surrounded by radiance and magical signs. Her body merged with a massive form, resembling a monumental creature. The magic around her emanated from her in powerful streams, emphasizing her strength. Her face remained calm and focused despite the tense situation. Tentacles and arms began to move from the body of the magical creature that Descaris had merged into. One of the tendrils rose up, forming a magical gesture, and then a charge burst out of it. The target was a young warrior standing at a distance. The woman gave the order to attack, calling him by name Iskandar. A powerful magical charge erupts from the fusion body that Descaris is in. In response, multiple protective panels activate in front of Iskandar, repelling the attack. He watches the scene with an impassive expression. The female mage rushes forward, expressing irritation and questioning the deafness of the senior mages. Descaris raises her hand and activates a magical artifact. She declares that she is the most powerful witch of all. A gigantic blast of destructive force descends from the sky. A magical attack called Crash Down Alexandra crashes down to the ground, causing a massive explosion. Descaris stands in front of her opponent and takes a deep breath. She ironically chides him for trying to cast a spell that had failed before. The witch activates the attack and pierces the enemy through and through. She notes that such behavior is a real disrespect for the girl. The boy is surprised to realize that he has been defeated. The girl confirms his defeat, noting that it happened just a second ago. He learns that he has lost to a wild and young opponent. The boy's body floats in the bubble, covered in magical light. The girl looks at the magician with mockery, calling him the embodiment of hatred for the world. She reminds him of how he was afraid of the young sorcerer, who possessed only 2 spells. With irony, she emphasizes his fear of possible defeat in the future. The man responds to the accusations with a short remark. A girl named Descaris says the word Golconda while looking away. She begins to move away from the man standing in front of the ruined surface. At this time, a mysterious creature with a huge body and a heart-shaped eye appears. The creature demands to reveal the test needed to obtain it, ordering her to speak. The wide-eyed young man suddenly opens his mouth, shouting words with tension. He utters fragments of a phrase, starting with my and moving on to 3, under great emotional tension. In the next shot, he is seen being pulled by an unknown force, squeezing his neck. The scene conveys a moment of sudden change and mounting tension. The witch calmly explains that the Golconda spell forces the target to say everything. The opponent's head is covered with magical roots that burst out, accompanied by a powerful visual effect. He tries to resist, but the spell is already in effect, breaking his control. The girl remembers that last time he did resist. The witch decides that she will extract information about the method of acquiring it from the creature at any cost. She is going to conduct small experiments to determine its weaknesses. Magic elements begin to hover in front of her, reflecting her intention to test the effects. The girl wants to understand what works, what does not, and what causes the enemy the most disgust. The enemy admits that he was wrong in his previous assessment of the witch and retracts his words. He addresses her directly, calling her a witch, and asks a question. The man asks how many magical creatures she has already managed to obtain. His gaze remains focused, without visible fear or irritation. The witch floats in the air inside a huge magical creature surrounded by floating crystals. Her face is calm, she holds a weapon and watches the enemy. When asked about the number of magic she has acquired, she answers that she does not know the exact number. According to her, the count has long been lost. The witch asks with feigned regret if his friends were among the victims. The young warrior in the magical cocoon is motionless, his body covered in wounds. The blonde mockingly apologizes, showing no sympathy. He cracks his neck, continuing to maintain an arrogant expression. The boy suddenly opens his eyes and looks around, surprised by what is happening. He quickly realizes that he is in an unfamiliar place. The forest around him is illuminated by light shining through the leaves, and the atmosphere seems strangely quiet. The hero wonders where he was taken and what is happening. The boy is surprised to notice how fresh the air around him is. He begins to inhale deeply and notices a pleasant aroma. Looking around, he notices that the plants look healthy and the soil seems fertile. The hero is happy with the surroundings and compares this place to an ideal mountain. The boy looks ahead in admiration and says the word paradis. In front of him sits a strange creature in a royal outfit and sunglasses, holding a glass of drink in its paw. Next to the creature are a furry animal and a fish-like spirit floating in the air. The entire environment sparkles, creating an atmosphere of luxury and comfort. The being in the royal robe lets out an irritated cry and says that he can't stand it anymore. He accuses the boy of being completely stupid and says that he hasn't done anything sensible. The spirits nearby agree with this. One of them remembers that he warned the boy about the need to run away. The hero himself, meanwhile, stands aside, surprised by what he has heard. The creatures discuss the boy's behavior and his recklessness. They recall how, instead of running away, he rushed straight at the enemy. One of the creatures calls him a magical overseer and admits that he is happy to be united with Lord Ororo, but asks him not to express himself strangely. The boy himself stands calmly nearby and confirms what he heard. Several beast-like creatures pointed out the hero's approach with cries. They were frightened and began to pronounce defensive phrases, trying to drive the man away. One of them suspiciously asked if the hero was going to harm them again. Ichi reacted calmly to what was happening, noting the strange technique. The hero became interested in the circle, suggesting that it could be a magical symbol. Meanwhile, the mysterious creature sitting on the throne began to explain what was happening. He noted that everything around represented the hero's inner world. Other inhabitants settled around them in the forest, watching the conversation. One of the creatures said that the hero had been knocked out in reality, which is why he was here. He was surprised and realized that he was still alive. Then began an explanation of the nature of magic and its connection with the inner world of witches. The fish with the crown added that they were now neighbors in the inner world. The hero was surprised to learn that the battle was continuing outside. The strawberry-headed creature warned of possible consequences. It offered to watch what was happening, calling it a spectacle. Then a transparent wall appeared, behind which scenes of the battle became visible. The dark-haired girl raised her face and concentrated. She stood on the magic circle with a determined expression. Symbols appeared on her feet, emphasizing her readiness for battle. The enemy, looking at her, recognized her strength. The blond man with the wound on his face looked ahead calmly, holding back his emotions. He acknowledged the strength of his opponent, but added that it was not enough. His head was held by the hair, but he remained unperturbed. Even in such a situation, he maintained confidence and cold calm. The black-haired girl looked straight ahead, calling for her opponent to surrender. She called him the bottomless witch, saying it with confidence. The boy who was addressed calmly agreed. His expression remained composed, without resistance. The guy in glasses suddenly approached his interlocutor, holding out his hand. His cloak fluttered in the wind, emphasizing the suddenness of his appearance. He suggested considering the possibility of adding a second prodigy. The opponent looked at him in surprise, not immediately reacting. The boy found himself inside an ice block, completely bound by magic. The enemy above him cast a spell, accompanying it with the name of a weapon. One of the observers noted that, although he did not want to, now was a good time to check something important. A long weapon with a sharpened end appeared on the ground. One of the fighters cast a spell called Mushroom Burst McIlvain, and a giant mushroom appeared in the air. The enemy responded by shouting, "Desgara!" and throwing a magic strike forward. From the other side, someone activated the magic Ignite du Match, and the tense face of the caster is shown in the foreground. Mushroom structures began to grow on the battlefield. A woman with long hair slashed at a giant mushroom with her sword, causing a powerful explosion. The explosion was accompanied by a series of flashes and smoke clouds. The blow was aimed with great force, as evidenced by the curved trajectory of the movement. The resulting cloud of dust almost completely obscured the target. A woman with a sword and a young man approached a barrier, with a fire burning in the center. He complained that her handwriting was so bad that he couldn't read the note on how to break through the defense. The woman replied that he had taken too long. The flames were still burning in the center of the magic circle. The woman with the sword asked her companion, doubtfully, if he had gotten lost on the way. The man confidently declared that he had never gotten lost, but she immediately accused him of lying. Both stood with their weapons raised, ready to fight. Meanwhile, the young man calmly ate ice cream against the backdrop of the fading explosion. One of the heroes reported that all the villagers had been evacuated and that reinforcements would arrive soon. He also pointed out the numerical superiority and suggested that the enemy surrender. The enemy, named Majik, rejected the offer with disdain. At this time, a group of people were shown below, hiding behind a magical barrier. Majik stood on the summoned magic hand in front of the large portal, declaring that further resistance was pointless. The girl screamed in fear, trying to stop him. The boy with long hair asked what he was going to do. The atmosphere became tense as the portal began to activate. Majik calmly explained that he only appeared, moved, and left, with no desire for more. He acknowledged that his existence was destructive, and that it would one day engulf the entire world. His gaze became determined as he said that this was the only reason for his existence. His words left a shocking impression. Majik stood before the portal, promising to return soon. His two allies watched him with anxious, reserved attention. One of them, his gaze fixed on the approaching moment of farewell. The hero touched the portal, ending the scene with his determination. The guy watched the events through the magic screen, shielding the others with his face. Those behind him irritably asked him to move away so as not to obstruct the view. He, without being distracted, clasped his hands around the image with the figure inside the portal. He confidently promised that he would simply wait for his moment. The boy approached the magic screen closely, looking at the enemy standing inside with determination. He swore that he would definitely find him one day. The enemy kept a cold expression, not responding. Meanwhile, the figure began to disappear inside the portal. A little further away in the forest, the boy noticed a child sitting on the ground alone. He called out to him, but he did not respond. Suddenly, a dark silhouette with a frightening face appeared above the child. The creature threatened that the boy would eventually become a victim. The boy asked in surprise why he would be the victim. The mysterious being expressed irritation at having to explain anything to his small brain. Then it tossed him aside, saying that he could get the answers from the witch when he woke up. The creature said that the witch had to explain everything to the boy. Then, it disappeared into the spatial rift, bidding him farewell and wishing to never return. The boy was left alone until the portal finally closed with a flash. The boy's eyes snapped open and he sat up in bed, realizing he had woken up. He found himself in a room, lying on a bed with his hands bandaged. Next to him, a girl with long hair was sleeping with her head on the edge of the bed. The atmosphere was calm, as if rest had come after a long period of anxiety. The girl continued to sleep, quietly tossing and turning on her pillow, while the chapter title announced that it was The 20th Hunt, Oracle. The boy, sitting up in bed, looked around the unfamiliar surroundings in surprise and quietly asked where he was. A man addressed him from behind the far sofa, calling him a wild boy and noting that he had finally woken up. The girl next to the bed did not react and was still sleeping, her head in her hands. A girl named Deskaras reproached the boy for being exhausted and sleeping for 3 whole days. He was surprised to learn how long he had been unconscious and asked if that was true. The girl explained that the spell had completed the healing while he was asleep. She also pointed out that he should thank Komugi, who had been there the whole time and monitored his condition. The girl looked at the boy carefully and asked if he could move. When he answered in the affirmative, she said that they needed to talk. She invited him to follow her, emphasizing that the conversation was important. The girl led the boy up the stairs and got straight to the point. She said that the region around Hoitaka was half destroyed. Then she emphasized that this was not an exaggeration. The image showed an area engulfed in explosions and destruction. The witch girl said that the association is currently repairing and investigating what happened. She explained that the village was not seriously damaged. However, many people were injured during the stampede. She also added that one person was particularly seriously injured. The boy repeated the words about the destruction of the village and its restoration in surprise. He asked if they were talking about the magician. The woman confirmed and said that he had threatened to destroy the entire world. After a short pause, she continued moving, taking a step forward. The woman said that she wanted to talk to the guy about a special magic called world hating. The two of them approached a large arch with a curtain from which a glow emanated. The next second, a magical vortex enveloped their bodies and they began to move. A brightly dressed figure with a clown-like face and a wide smile suddenly appeared before the heroes. She greeted them enthusiastically, calling the boy, "Our beloved Messiah." The woman stood between them, and the curtains opened behind her, emphasizing the solemnity of the moment. The guy backed away from the clown woman, noting with displeasure that she had come too close. He asked her words again in surprise, not understanding who she meant. The woman with braids tried to begin an explanation, but hesitated. The guy sarcastically asked if the witches in this association were obliged to arrange such strange appearances. The clown witch introduced herself as Jikishiron and loudly announced that she was an oracle. She greeted the hero enthusiastically. The boy remained motionless, looking at her in surprise. Then he repeated the word oracle, not immediately realizing what it meant. The boy looked at the witch carefully and asked her a direct question, wondering if she was human. Jikishiron was confused at first and stared at him silently. The girl with tattoos watched their dialogue without interfering. The atmosphere in the room became a little tense from his unexpected question. Jikishiron responded to the question with delight, smiling broadly and praising his intelligence. The girl with tattoos noted that Jikishiron was a special case. The boy stood between them, surprised but calm. The witch added that Descaras had a reason for keeping him around. The girl with long hair was in a coma for 10 years, lying motionless in bed. Her condition remained unchanged all this time. But one day, something unexpected happened. She suddenly woke up. Waking up, she slowly walked to the window, as if returning to reality after a long sleep. After waking up, the girl became a completely different person, as if her personality had changed. A mysterious creature with a ghostly appearance appeared behind her. It looked for people who were paralyzed or unable to move. Then it forced them to do certain things and took over their bodies. The girl in the jester's outfit explained that the body belonged to Jikishirone. However, the one speaking to them now was not a human. She concluded her speech by stating that before them was the very magic of prophecy. The prophetic entity claimed that it was not hostile to humans and was trying to cooperate with them. It promised to share predictions, but only of its own choosing. The woman confirmed that one of these prophecies appeared just a few minutes before the event. She added that the last prediction concerned Monagold Livid. The prophetic entity stated that she was being generous by sharing her predictions with the witches, and emphasized that they should be grateful. The woman, with a serious expression on her face, did not respond. The guy tried to change the conversation to the main point, suggesting that they stop the performances. He added that he hated everything that was happening. The boy asked again about his fate in surprise, trying to understand where the conversation was heading. The prophetic entity, balancing on the ball, pointed at it and clarified that it was about his fate and the fate of the world hater. The atmosphere in the hall remained solemn, with decorations and curtains. The tension between the heroes gradually increased. The prophetic entity, still balancing on the ball, declared that all her predictions were always accurate. The girl and the guy sitting opposite her watched her attentively, listening with tension. Then she said that she had once received the worst possible prophecy. This news caused an alarming reaction from the interlocutors. He says that no witch will ever be able to master it. Then he adds that this power will be known as the magic of hatred of the world. His words sound like a prediction or a sentence. A boy stands in a broken and twisted landscape, surrounded by strange organic structures. Above him, text tells of a catastrophe that will occur one day in the future. The prophecy warns that this force will destroy the world. The setting emphasizes the scale and horror of the impending threat. The boy sat with his eyes closed, lost in thought, as the prophecy continued to unfold. All living things were to be twisted into living abominations. When not a single human remained, the world would reach its final end. The fate threatened total destruction and distortion of life. The prophecy spoke of the only hope that could change the predestined outcome. It lay in the one who would obtain the magic of Urobo. This light would challenge the one who hated the world. If the light prevailed, the entire world would be granted salvation. The girl was told that she was the witch the whole world had been waiting for. She was called the Messiah, the light that could save humanity. She was destined to gain the magic of the world hater. Surprised, she asked again what it meant to be a Messiah. The girl continued to listen as the fortune-teller smiled and declared that her death would be the key to saving the world. The words were spoken under the circus dome, creating an ominous contrast between the setting and what was said. She sat motionless, as if she couldn't believe what she had heard. The fortune-teller said that she had told everything that had been revealed to her by the prophecy. A dark prediction was made. The light that was supposed to save the world would fade and die. An addition emerged. As soon as this light mastered the magic of the world-hating one, it would bring peace to humanity, but at the same time it would disappear. The guy took it calmly and said he understood. The girl clarified that the last part of the prophecy had come to her only recently. Then she added that he would most likely become a victim. The girl in the jester costume tried to convince her interlocutor that his choice was obvious. She explained that it was only about one life against all the creatures on Earth. Then she enthusiastically asked if he was going to refuse. The guy was silent and did not react in any way. The jester enthusiastically urges the hero to go to his death. The girl standing nearby coldly says that he must sacrifice himself to save the world. She remains calm, while the jester seems animated. The atmosphere remains tense and dramatic. The guy with a determined expression loudly agrees without hesitating for a second. The girl in the white dress turns to him in surprise, trying to stop him. He looks forward confidently, as if he had made a decision. The atmosphere remains serious and tense. The guy talks about his choice between a simple death and the possibility of dying, taking the enemy with him. He emphasizes that prophecies and talk about the Messiah do not mean much to him. The girl, with a sad expression on her face, listens to his words in silence. He remains calm and confident in his decision. The guy makes his final choice and speaks about it with firm determination. He expresses his readiness to die, but to take the enemy with him. A confident smile appears on his face, reflecting his inner determination. His words sound like a firm promise to fulfill his plans. The guy says that all the details can be thought out as events unfold. The Joker enthusiastically calls him the Messiah, but he asks not to use this word. The girl suggests other nicknames but is refused. In response to another option, the older girl categorically expresses her disagreement. The girl asks if E.T. will die after receiving the hateful magic, and reminds her that the witch's prediction was different, to which she answers positively with a satisfied face. The girl says that the prophecy about the witcher's death came to her only yesterday, and considers the guy's death to be a trifle. The girl in the hat is clearly unhappy with the fortune-teller's opinion and decides to keep the matter under wraps. She says that the witcher must be notified of the witch's prediction as soon as he wakes up. Descara is drinking at a bar when Togeya suddenly comes up to her and notices that she's already drinking quite a lot. The girl asks why Togeya came, to which she replies that she came to drink. Togeya begins to complain about a mushroom that is flying around her magic circle. The girl also decides to touch on the topic of the ice shark, which, in her opinion, was stolen, and a discussion begins between the girls. Togeya mentions Ichi and believes that he was born under a special star. The girl is worried that the guy might start to remind Descaras of her brother. The girl remembers her little brother for a second. Togeya pours Descaras a glass of wine and says that the girl is too kind. Tugayas is also ready to change at any time if the girl gets hard. The girl pours herself another glass and says with a smile that Tiku is sticking his nose into other people's business again, after which she drinks the glass. Descaras comes to E.T. and asks him to sit down. The guy does not understand what is happening. The girl offers E.T. something to eat, which surprises the guy greatly. The girl reminds him of the prophecy and asks if the guy is really ready to do that. E.T. says he doesn't mind, but he doesn't want to die, and is only alive because he once refused to die peacefully. The guy says that he can only live here and now, and plans for the future make his brain hurt. He also says that he would like to avoid the prophecy. The girl interrupts the guy and says that she wants them to become one family. The guy is surprised by the girl's proposal, and immediately imagines how it will look. Descaras asks to put aside panic and listen to her carefully. She explains that it is her responsibility to provide Ichi with everything he needs, since she was the one who pulled him out and made him fight monsters. She decides to provide the boy with a home first. The girl hands E.T. a contract between a mentor and a student, and asks her to sign it. E.T. signs the contract, after which Descaras strips his own blood on it. Suddenly, a magical light flares up around the girl and she comes closer to the guy. Descaras puts his hand on his head. Meanwhile, the fire passes to the guy and they complete the contract. Now they are a family. Apparently, the guy is very happy. Meanwhile, Descaras tells him to clean up, then prepare her bath, and gives him a bunch of other tasks. The guy doesn't understand what's going on, and the girl says with a smirk that this contract is essentially considered a slave contract. Now the guy, as a student, is obliged to obey the teacher. The girl runs away, leaving the dissatisfied guy. Descaras shows the others the contract signing mark. The witch, in shock, begins to yell at the girl, to which she sweetly asks for forgiveness. The girl in the hat says that, according to the contract, if a student dies, the mentor also dies, and asks if Descaras knew about this. Descaras explains that she doesn't want to be a shitty adult and will do everything she can to prepare for the worst-case scenario. She says with a smile that now she and E.T. are a family, which surprises the girls, since they didn't think that Descaras could show such emotions. The next morning, Descaras speaks of a new prophecy from Dizika. The boys read the prophecy and consider it to be rosary and good. After reading it, they all ask themselves what kind of comrade they need to get. Meanwhile, an unknown man torments the monster, demanding that he tell him how to get him. Based on the prophecy, the boys need to go to the land of the Bakugami to hunt. By doing this, they will get a comrade who will help them save the world, so they set off to search. In the mines in the south, the boys find a huge nest. Mugi explains that this is a nest of spider magic. Ichi is ready to hunt the spider, but Descaras stops him, asking him not to rush into battle without preparation. Mugi notices that Descaras and Ichi's relationship has changed, and remembers how Ichi came to her with an offer to become a family. Descaras interrupts Mugi's thoughts and asks if there was a report that someone had obtained the Origumo. Mugi replies negatively, not understanding the question, and then notices that the nest has been breached. The boys look into the nest and see a man tying a ribbon around a spider and tying a bow. The spider doesn't understand why the guy is doing this, to which he replies that he wants to get the magic. Having finished with the bow, the guy vomits off the spider. He kisses his ring and prepares to attack, which frightens the spider even more. Damages magic with one flick. Meanwhile, Mugi finally found information about this guy. It turns out the guy was nicknamed the Gokuraku Tormentor and is on the official list of dangerous people. The spider asks him to stop, saying that even after passing the test, the guy will not be able to use magic. The guy apparently does not care about the spider's words. He demands to come up with a way to make everything work. He ignores the spider's words and decides to beat her until she allows him to have her. Finally, E.T. intervenes, surprising the boy and stopping him for a moment. E.T. uses a spell and takes the spider for himself. The guy is shocked by what is happening. E.T. tells the boy that there is no point in starting a hunt if he cannot kill. The guy is delighted with E.T. and asks how he used magic. He suddenly grabs E.T. and asks to make him a witcher too. Gokuraku takes the boy somewhere, saying that they need to talk. Suddenly, Descaras stops him by locking him in a turtle basket, preventing them from leaving. The guy destroys the basket with a simple kick and asks what that was. The girl doesn't give up and puts a huge bell on the guys and tells them to pack them up like that and take them back to headquarters. Suddenly, silence hangs in the bell. Having removed the bun, the girls notice that the guys have dug a tunnel. Meanwhile, they have already emerged from under the ground in another place. They found themselves in the middle of a herd of goats, who were not very friendly. Gokuragu apologizes and picks up Ichi and starts to leave. One goat starts running after him, but the guy kills it with a deft move. The boys jump into the water to wash themselves, after which Gokuragu decides to catch some fish. Ichi notices something strange on the guy's back, to which he says that he built it himself and explains how. Gokuragu is more interested in Ichi, since the guy has never met a witcher in his life. He bombards the boy with questions, to which he takes out a knife and asks him to first cut up the goat. Ichi notes Gokuragu's skill and says that if they eat the goat, it will be a real hunt. The boys cut up the fish, then collect branches, and Gokuragu makes a cave out of the mountain, where they later cook food. Ichi shows the boy Uroro who made him a witcher. The monster is apparently not happy. While he is grumbling at the boy, Gokuragu interrupts him by eating him. In the end, he spits out the monster. He thinks that Ichi is lucky and would like to have such a monster too. Gokuragu lies down on the ground and falls asleep instantly, and Ichi also goes to sleep. While everyone is sleeping, the monster climbs up to the tormentor, offering him a deal so that he becomes a witcher. The monster offers to finish off Ichi. The monster explains that after death, Ichi will become free, and then Gokuragu will be able to get him and become a witcher. The guy interrupts the monster by giving him a powerful flick. The monster doesn't understand what's wrong with the guy, to which he says that the monster reminds him of a nasty sorceress. The guy comes closer and says that the idea of a monster is pathetic. His mood was also spoiled by thoughts about that magic. Gokuragu is determined to kill the boy. Ichi stops the boy's blow and asks him to tell about that magic. Meanwhile, the girls have arrived at the residential area of the mines. Mugi explains their plan of action, but Descara looks very sad. The girl starts crying, thinking that it's all over, but Mugi tries to cheer her up. The girls are met by a man, as they were notified of the arrival of the ladies from the Witch Association. Descaras thinks that Origumo is somehow not suitable according to the prophecy. The man intervenes in the girls' conversation, saying that the thought of hated magic in their country is terrifying. Finally, they arrive at the place, and the man opens the curtains, introducing the girls to the magic of sleep. The man explains that this magica is their god, and a dear member of the family, she saved everyone. Descara wonders what they will do if someone tries to get the magica. The man, with a calm smile, replies that they will execute those who try to take away the magic. He says that sleep magic is their honorable savior, and meanwhile Gokuragu says that sleep magic is the worst parasite on Earth. Gokuragu asks Ichi to help him get magic, even if it means making an entire country his enemy. We are shown a sleeping magician with a girl sitting inside. She is happy because the time has almost come when she can destroy the entire country. 10 years ago, the guards are looking for the little princess, who in the meantime is a little girl sitting on the street and whining. The little girl meets a little animal. The little animal asks why she is crying, and the girl replies that her mother died. Then the little animal tells her to hug him, and the girl obeys, after which she noticeably becomes happier. The girl brings the animal to some tramp, and he hugs it, after which he also becomes happier. They take the animal to the others, and everyone becomes happy. Meanwhile, the king is told that because of the misfortune, the people may rise up against him. The king decides to humbly watch what happens next, when suddenly the guards run out and ask to look outside. The king comes out and sees a crowd of happy people, as well as his daughter. The family is reunited, and rumors of the beast living in the seal quickly spread, causing crowds of people to visit the Bakugami. After a thorough inspection by the Witch Association, the beast was called Sleep Magic, and the king named it Bakugami. The country also changed its name to the beast's name, and since then the country has flourished. And within 3 years it became the most popular tourist destination in the world. Mugi asks about the number of inspections carried out, to which the man says that after 1, the rest of the inspections were rejected. Descara asks if they are sure that magic is safe, to which the man says that they are sure. The man asks Descaras not to even think about harming the magic, and the girls are slightly scared. Princess Rithia suddenly appears, and the girls greet her. Rithia says that she came to pray before the ceremony. It turns out that in 3 days, there will be a 10-year anniversary ceremony in honor of magic, and the princess will pray to magic on behalf of the people. The man says that this is the most important ceremony, and everyone is looking forward to it. The ceremony begins, and the host invites everyone to enjoy the blessings of the Lord. While he is speaking, Gokuragu and Ichi find themselves on the roof, Suddenly, the ceiling collapses and guys appear from above, attacking the magician. Everyone is in shock. And meanwhile, E.T. realizes that the lightning did not awaken the magic. Now it's Gokuragu's turn, and the guy deals a blow to the magician. The presenter immediately called the guards, and now the guys were surrounded. The guards begin to attack, but Gokuragu grabs Ichi and asks the boy to cover his ears. After which he uses his power and makes a bang, stunning the guards, causing the guys to run away. The princess and Gokuragu exchange glances, after which the boys leave. The guards remain fully prepared for an attack. The girls realize that E.T. has done something wrong and start to panic. The man turns to them and they immediately answer that they are not involved in this. The man explains to the girls that Gokuraku is a criminal. The guards are also surprised that he found an accomplice. The girls are getting more and more nervous. There are a bunch of wanted posters hanging around the streets, and Descara asks if it's really that serious. The man explains that it is, and takes the girl's words for the fact that she can easily catch the criminals, and people support his words. The residents, confident that the witch will ensure success, decide to declare a hunt for the criminals, and Descara sadly realizes that if E.T. is finished, then so is she. The princess prays to the Lord, asking him to save everyone. Meanwhile, the girl inside the beast realizes that she has been attacked with magic for the first time. She wonders who was with Gokuragu, but thinks it's not very important. She then sees that the Lord's altar is broken and panics as she prepares a new one. The girl wonders whether a bouquet of heads from the country's inhabitants will be enough for the ruler and is sure that she will soon be able to show herself. Meanwhile, the princess returns to her room, when suddenly a wind appears in the room. Gokuragu entered the room through the window, which greatly surprised the girl, and said that she should lock the windows. The guy walks into the room, getting closer to the princess, after which he kisses the girl's hand. It turns out that Gokuragu is Ritia's brother. The girl grumbles at her brother for scaring her and not telling her about his return, after which she asks if he is eating normally, to which she receives an answer. The princess still doesn't understand what her brother is doing, but says that she can be calm as long as he is happy and healthy. The girl also asks who her brother's companion is, and E.T. introduces herself. The princess is delighted, as she cannot believe that her brother has made a friend. The boys themselves are not particularly sure that they are friends, and the princess begins to ask them questions. After the boys answer, the girl concludes that they are friends and rejoices. She also says that as a child, Gokuragu did not play with his peers, but simply delved into magical things. Gokuragu says that he is fine without friends and says that Ichi is the same, to which the guy does not really understand the concept of friends. Taking advantage of the opportunity, the boy talks about his family. The guy enthusiastically starts talking about his family, and the guys have a great time. In the end, the guys chatted so much that the princess even took out photographs from the family archive. The girl showed a photo of her mother and said with a smile that she had died 10 years ago. Gokuragu looked a little ill, but Ichi was surprised. The boy is sorry, but the girl says that everything is fine, and now she is not sad at all. Gokuragu puts the cup on the table and leaves. Before leaving, the girl asks her brother to come to the ceremony, to which he agrees, and the guys leave. The guy reminds his sister that the main event will be the decade since the death of their mother. Gokuragu tells Ichi that his sister was a crybaby when she was a child. When she was happy, she glowed with happiness, and on the contrary, when she was sad, she immediately started crying. The guy says that his sister loved her mother more than anyone else in the world, and would never have said that she wasn't even a little sad. The guy says that his sister doesn't understand how empty these words were. He also says that magic doesn't take away sadness, but sucks out the ability to be sad from people. Gokuragu says that when he implanted magical objects into himself, he made an oath to steal all of his sister's emotions back from magic, and for this the guy will do anything. He tells E.T. that there is nowhere to retreat, and if he tries to escape, he will be finished off. Now they are accomplices. E.T. says that all his life he acted only for his own protection and did not really understand the principle of doing things for the sake of others. But now the guy wants to do something for Gokuragu, he wants to help him. People bombard Descara with questions and reports as she tries to eat. The girls are increasingly panicking, and Descaris realizes that if he refuses, it will be suspicious, so they decide to leave when they get a chance. Suddenly, E.T. appears under the table. The girls are scared, which attracts the soldiers' attention. They quickly hide E.T. back under the table and lie that everything is fine. They also come up with excuses that they wanted to perform a witch ritual, and the soldiers decide to leave them so as not to interfere. As soon as they leave, Descaris grabs Ichi by the scruff of the neck and asks what he's doing. The guy, pleased, asks for help in getting Bakugami. The guys explain everything, but Descaris doesn't believe them and says that they can't trust Gokuragu. The guy says that as soon as he gets Bakugami, he will immediately accept his punishment, after which the girl asks Ichi why he is sure that Gokuragu can be trusted. Ichi explains that his intuition told him so, and also says that Gokuragu is his friend, and he wants to believe in his friend. The girl asks if E.T. thinks she's a fool, but she understands that the boy will still go to help. She decides to help only if the boy listens to her. Descaris says they need to resort to the quote but no bite plan, which leaves everyone stunned. Descaris says she has come up with a plan and is requesting a re-examination, but she is denied. The girl is upset when she accepts the soldier's decision, when suddenly E.T. appears on the roof behind her. He shouts into the loudspeaker that Bakugami sucks and continues to insult people, which irritates them. They immediately begin to attack, but the guys cleverly escape on the white shark. The soldiers are amazed by the guy's magic and decide to go after him, but they can't leave the ruler. Then the witch says that she will look after the ruler. The girl assures them that she can handle it better than anyone else, and the soldiers entrust the protection of the ruler to her. The girl asks the commander of the soldiers why he doesn't leave, to which he says that he always watches the Lord. As a result, Descaris knocks him out. Descaris summons his monster and prepares to attack the Magica. The people are chasing after Gokuragu and Ichi, while the boys continue to desecrate their revered magic. Meanwhile, Magica hears a noise outside and complains, as her imaginary conversation with the world-hating Magica is interrupted. The girl continues to talk to Magica. Suddenly, her conversation is interrupted by the monster Descaris, which frightens the girl. She begins to scream, but the monster covers her mouth. He presses the magic into the wall and looks out through the wall. Descaris realizes that the monster cannot pull the magic out through the wall and decides to open the animal in which the magic is located. With one blow, the girl destroys the animal, which leaves the magician even more shocked. Magica starts screaming, not understanding why she smells the hatred of Magica from Descaris. She considers it unfair and insults the girl. Descaris doesn't like this very much and asks Magica if she is a stalker or something, to which Magica continues to yell, asking if the world-hating Magica mentioned her. Descaris also asks what kind of Magica this girl is. The girl introduces herself as a magician of joyful sadness who supports the hating lord. She also hates people and offers to demonstrate this. He shows the man a cut-up animal, which causes him to panic, after which the magic returns his own sadness to him. A man sees an illusion with his family. He is glad that they were found, when suddenly his daughter says that she is in pain, cold, and wants to eat. Suddenly the daughter's face transforms, frightening the man, causing him to scream and remember that they died of cold and hunger. He does not understand why he forgot this, and meanwhile the illusions blame him for everything. Meanwhile, Gokuragu interrupts the man's illusions, but he now asks to be allowed to die. Together with Descaris, they calm the man down, and he falls asleep. The guy asks what the magician did, to which she explains. Magica explains that she has been accumulating people's sadness for 10 years now and will soon return it back to people on the day of the ceremony, which could cause everyone to go crazy. She says that they will be in complete shock and will cry hysterically, trying to kill everyone they see. She speaks joyfully of the reign of the parade of human cannibalism and death, and also says that she will dedicate this nightmare to the ruler of the world-hating magic. Descaris says that first they will receive it and asks about the test. Magica says that her test is to accept all the seal accumulated over the decades, and to endure it, alone, without a trace. She also decides to choose who will accept this sadness. Magica chooses Rithia, mocking Gokuragu. Little Gokuragu shows his mother his invention, to which his mother praises her son. The boy promises that he will invent new magical items so that his mother can recover quickly. Gokuragu asks his sister who they are bringing flowers to which she says that they are bringing flowers to Bakugami. The brother starts yelling at his sister because she never came to her mother's grave, to which the sister says that she is no longer sad, but for some reason she cries. They come to the Lord, and the sister leaves to get flowers, after which the blat starts shouting for Bakugami to return the stolen feelings to her sister. The little animal offers to just hug him. Suddenly, a face appears from the animal, saying that after hugging, the guy will not care about anything. The guy gets very scared, and the magician is going to erase his feelings. The boy can't stand it and hits the magician. The guards notice this and immediately grab the boy and take him to the king. The servant explains that the boy has done something that the people will definitely not approve of. The king comes to the sorceress to ask forgiveness for his son, to which he asks her to hug him. The king says to release his son from prison, and Gokuragu tries to explain everything. The father does not listen to his son and orders to lock him in his room, and if he starts to act up, then to banish him from the country. Little Gokuragu decides that he must do something about this magic, even if everyone fears and hates him. He is determined to stop the magic. Gokuragu is not happy that his sister has to go through the test, to which Magica says that there is no other choice if they want to stop her. Then the guy volunteers to go through this test himself. He is determined, but Descaris tries to stop him. The girl says that she will do it herself, but the guy does not give in. Then the magician offers roulette, and everyone waits to see who the arrow of fate will land on. Suddenly, the guy takes apart the roulette, saying that he will do everything himself. Magica tries to explain the rules, but Gokuragu doesn't care. The guy waited 10 years to pull out the magic and finally strikes her. The guy continues to beat up the magician and says that he will not stop until she agrees. Magica is shocked and doesn't understand what the guy is doing. She explains that the guy won't be able to bypass the rules like that and decides that Ritia will take her test. She mocks the guy again when suddenly Edie appears from above and stands on the Magica. The boy asks his friend if this is the smooth Magica he wanted to hit. Ichi apologizes for being late and says that he switched with Mugi and now she is distracting people. The boy says that he saw everything and praises his friend for the hit. The guys are talking, and meanwhile Descaris notes that the sight of two guys giving Magica a hard time is something that is familiar to them when hunting. Meanwhile, Magica is getting irritated again. She goes crazy again, not understanding why Ichi also smells like hateful magic. And his smell is much stronger than Descaris. Ichi introduces himself to Magica and explains that he froze the water of the hating Magica and stuck a branch into her neck. Magica gets angry and says that she will kill Ichi, but Gokuragu interrupts her, saying that he will not finish beating her yet. The guy strikes and suddenly the magic disappears, and the guy's fist hits something incomprehensible. It turns out it's a magic shield. She says she really didn't want to do it, but she doesn't care anymore. Magica says that she will make Gokuragu suffer, and then kill him. Meanwhile, Ichi attacks Magica from above. The guys start attacking the magic from two sides. As a result, Magica creates a sphere, defending herself from the blows. Magica is surprised that Ichi can cast spells. Suddenly, Gokuragu's sister stands up for magic. She cries and asks her brother to stop, and doesn't understand how her brother can be so cruel. The girl can't believe that her brother attacked their savior, to which Gokuragu says that this creature is not a god. The guy explains that it is a demon who has perverted the souls of all the inhabitants, and the girl begins to think that it is her fault. She says that she brought the ruler herself, and that means now it is her fault, to which her brother denies. Magica tells the princess that it is her fault that she brought her, and because of this, now everyone will die. The guy can't take it anymore and hits the magician, barely missing Ichi. Magica uses her power and transfers all of Gokuragu's sadness. The guy starts to go crazy with rage, and the magician is more fun because now the show will begin. At first meeting, Gokuragu seemed strange to Ichi since he is cruel only to magicians and does not show a drop of hostility towards others. Ichi realized that Gokuragu was a good guy, deep down. Now Gokuragu was determined to kill Ichi. Suddenly, Descaris stops Ichi and demands that he step back. Ichi justifies himself by saying that he simply reacted. Descara is no longer sure whether Gokuragu is now a human, but Magica says that the mantle of sorrow is slowly and inexorably introducing a seal into the boy's body. Magica explains that according to the rules, the test subject must accept the entire seal, and if he dies during the test will be failed. Also, if passed, Magica will be given to Ichi. Magica ties the guys together with a chain and says that they are both test subjects. Magica also tells Descaris not to interfere anymore, otherwise the test will also fail. She has prepared a more suitable opponent for the girl. The beast attacks the witch, but she manages to jump away. The beast's body is covered with eyes, and the magician says that this is the nozzle, and as soon as the guys have the test, it will wake up. Once the beast wakes up and opens its eyes, it will unleash its own sorrow on the inhabitants of the country. The beast begins to move towards the city, which irritates Descara. Ichi asks if Descara is okay, but the girl tells him to look ahead. Meanwhile, Gokuragu almost hits the boy, but he manages to jump away. The guy uses a chain and slams Ichi into the ground. Majika explains that she can only give sadness to those she took from, but as part of the test, she can do anything. Ichi understands that things are very bad, and Magica, meanwhile, is happy. Ichi realizes that Gokuragu intends to kill him, but the boy cannot kill his friend. Conflicting desires prevent him from reacting in time. Suddenly, Gokuragu strikes himself, surprising Magica and Ichi. Gokuragu tells Ichi that he can cut him wherever he wants, but not touch the rocks on his back. The guy also says that he can handle it. Gokuragu relies on Ichi. The boy takes the position of a friend and is confident that everything will work out for them. Magica notices that Gokuragu has almost regained his sanity, but she also notes that it is extremely difficult to swallow so much sadness. If the boy wants to survive, he needs to destroy the clot of rage and hatred directed at himself. The guys start fighting to the death, which makes the magician quite happy. Ichi remembers his friend's words about doing what he must and strikes Gokuragu. None of the guys give up, and they continue the fight. Unexpectedly for Gokuragu, Ichi approaches and stabs him with a knife. This does not stop the elder, and he pushes the younger away. Magica is having more and more fun with their fight. The boys continue to fight, and Gokuragu grabs Ichi by the scruff of the neck so that he doesn't move during the attack. The guy throws a punch, but the younger one manages to knock him down. Ichi slides under Gokuragu and stabs him in the leg. Gokuragu bites Ichi's neck very painfully. The boy hits him on the back. Ichi says that this is the last blow and asks his friend to stop and take form. A web starts to appear from Gokuragu's body, and the boy stops. Magica is in complete shock. It turns out it's a spider magic spell that creates a cage and freezes the target. The caster can choose the activation time, but still has to touch the victim directly. Ichi tells his friend that he can rage as much as he wants. He is confident that Gokuragu can handle it and believes in him. He asks his friend to win because it is his hunt. I report to the princess about the unrest in the city, but she asks not to worry because the palace is safe. Mugi can no longer stand it because she is sure that the crowd will seize her. Descaras can't help Mugi but asks to lure everyone as close to the palace as possible. Mugi asks what's going on there. Descara replies that they are having some kind of giant tug-of-war. Descara realizes that since she has been forbidden to interfere, all she can do is watch. Descaras decides that in the worst case, if E.T. is on the verge of death, he will grab him and knock him down. She understands that he might hate her, so if he doesn't want that, he needs to win. Meanwhile, Gokuragu sits with his sister in a flower field, where she weaves flower wreaths for him. Suddenly, she remembers her mother and asks if she screamed. The guy is surprised how suddenly it starts raining. They don't understand what kind of rain it is. When suddenly the guy gets stuck and the sister goes somewhere. Gokuragu and the princess's mother appears. Rydia is shocked, and meanwhile, her mother says that she has completely forgotten about her. The girl begins to cry and ask for forgiveness. A knife appears in the princess's hands, and her mother says that this is atonement. The brother and sister are in complete shock. Gokuragu asks his sister not to do this, as her mother would never say such a thing, but the girl does not hear him. The girl puts a knife to her throat, thinking that her mother will forgive her after this. The princess stabs herself in the neck right in front of her brother, causing him to go into hysterics. The guy tries to reach his sister, but can't. After that, the girl falls, and the guy himself falls into the water. Gokuragu no longer wants to hear or feel anything. His heart feels like it's being torn apart in his chest. Suddenly, the guy is grabbed and asked what a family is like. Majika is shocked that the guy is still resisting. She finds it hard to believe that Gokuragu is capable of such a superhuman feat. Since Gokuragu is still standing, it means he is no longer human. The guy already said that they stuffed magic items into themselves to fight the magicians, but there were quite a lot of them. Magica notes that now he is just a mechanical monster. Magica's still sure that even so the guy will reach the limit and die. Magica thanks the guy for hating her so much and mocking him. Suddenly, E.T.'s knife flies into the magic. The boy tells him to stop and not to dare insult his friend anymore. Magica thinks that Ichi is a fool for letting his emotions get the better of him. She also wonders how Ichi will stop Gokuragu without a weapon. The boy remembers his conversation with Gokuragu about family. Gokuragu explains to the boy that for him, family is a big stake in the ground. He is always there, always supportive, and thanks to the stake the boy can get back on his feet if he falls. For Gokuragu, family is a stake that cannot be broken or torn away and cannot be let go, because it is very dear. Gokuragu also remembers this, and reaches out his hand to the small, glowing ball as he is consumed by darkness, realizing that he must never let it go. Meanwhile, Gokuragu's body prepares to strike Ichi. Magica is in anticipation of the blow, but Ichi remains calm. Gokuragu strikes, but the boy dodges in time. After that, Ichi pushes his friend and he hits the ground, destroying the flag. Magica doesn't understand what they are doing. Gokuragu says that he has suffered a lot over these 10 years. Even though he was in pain, he didn't let his pain out, but pushed it in as deep as he could. He rips the flag and says he won't let anyone take anything from them anymore. Gokuragu, the first prince of Kagami country, will no longer allow magic to play with the hearts and souls of his people. Majika is shocked and can't believe what's happening. She doesn't understand how the guy managed to regain his sanity. Gokuragu approaches the Magica and attacks her. He only has one sphere left. After this, the test will end. The guy throws Ichi a knife and asks if he is with it until the end, to which he receives a positive answer. Gokuragu remembers his childhood, how he always sat in his room. The soldiers thought that he was just playing with magical objects. One day, the boy struck the beast again, and he was declared a traitor to the motherland. The sister couldn't believe it, and thought there was a reason for it. She asked her brother to talk to her, but he just left silently, because he didn't want his sister to start blaming herself. The guy is considered a disgrace to his country and a traitor, but he is sure that he can handle everything himself. The entire country has lost the ability to distinguish reality from illusion. Gokuragu remembers how Ichi agreed to help him and that the boy believes in him. That's why Gokuragu was so happy when he heard those words. He was happy to fight hand in hand with someone. Gokuragu has a family so he can stand up, but because he is lonely, he can't reach the stake. Ichi helped him get home. Ichi strikes his friend while Gokuragu swings his own. Their eyes meet, and Gokuragu realizes that he is no longer alone. The cheerful guys continue the fight. Magica thinks that they both have gone crazy, but unfortunately for her, there is only one sphere left, which is almost finished. She understands the guys will soon pass her test and runs to look for a person from whom she can steal the seal. She runs into the city, but the streets are empty. She is shocked and doesn't understand where everyone has gone. Meanwhile, all the inhabitants gathered in the palace. The king talks to the chief witch, and she thanks him for his timely response. She also guarantees the safety of his people. The witches convince people that the Bakugami Lord has turned into a terrible evil god, and the only way to return him to his normal form is for everyone to gather together and pray. Magica begins to feel her powers leaving her, as suddenly a princess appears on the street, looking for her brother. The girl calls her brother, and the magician smiles in the meantime.